sweep of the Braves, with the Guardians coming to Petco tonight. SDFC, early and often versus LAFC.
Approaching the 18, and the ball is, but Magoon does it.
A 3-2 win has them tied for third in the West, plus the Final Four is set. Time for some positive reflection with Jon and Jim.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? It is hour one of Jon and Jim. We have a great show, not a good show, but a great show lined up for you today because Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio, is back with us to talk about the Padres' 4-0 start, the first since 1984. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, will join us at 5:30 as we get you ready for this Cleveland-San Diego series. Kevin Egan, the host of MLS 360 and the MLS Wrap-Up. I like that name, MLS Wrap-Up. What a good idea for a show name.
Oh, wow, nice.
He will join us coming up at 5 p.m. and we'll get into SDFC. We'll get into Magoon Guth, but we will start with your San Diego Padres. I'll be honest, Jim, and I mentioned this last night. I never even envisioned a 4-0 start with Atlanta coming here. I thought a good start was have a winning homestand. At best, maybe win 5 of your first 7 games. That sounds terrific to me, and that still might play out with Cleveland coming here. But 4-0 against Atlanta, to start your year 4-0 when the franchise has been around for nearly 60 years and you've only done it one other time, there's not a lot to complain about. I mean, we critique when it's reasonable and fair. People should be over the moon. I know it's only 4 games. I know it's only one series. We were there on Saturday. This place has been packed. The team has played great. What more can you ask for? Hopefully continues this week against Cleveland. It's been an incredible start.
Incredible start. After their win on Friday, you're thinking just win 3 of 4.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Get greedy, win 3 of 4, come in on Monday with the series win. Welcome the Guardians to town. If you take 2 or 3 from them, you're 5-2 to start the season. We said they needed to get out to kind of a quick start. This is beyond a quick start. Now, it's just 4 games.
One series.
They could absolutely, at some point this year, end up losing 4 in a row. How many games? You know how many 5-game losing streaks they had last year?
I do.
A lot.
4.
That was a lot. Teams that have 4 5-game losing streaks in a season probably aren't going to win 90-plus games.
Don't typically make the postseason. Yet
No,
they somehow
don't.
did that last year. Yeah.
So, they could easily lose 4 in a row here after they just won their first 4 of the season. But it's to me a continuation of the regular season of 2024 into 2025. Darnay, friend of the show, he tweeted out last night their record dating back to the regular season last year, not counting the postseason. So including their first 4 games here this year, the Padres are 47-19 in their last 66 regular season games. Is that good?
It's hard to remember. They were 50-50. They were thumped to open the second half in Cleveland against these Guardians, lost by 10 runs or more. They were 50-50, and they closed 93-69 overall, 43-19. So that was their best run ever. And now they've started this 2025 4-0. The question is, how long does this continue? They've never been 5-0, even 1984. They didn't start 5-0 in 1984. It's not about how long can you remain unbeaten. It's how long can you sustain how you finish 2024. I never expected. I always think seasons are different. I asked Kevin to start the year. He'll join us at 5:30. Kevin Acee. I said, is there any hangover effect from the way the 2024 ended? The answer is unequivocally no. If you remember, 43-19, Jim, was great. The Dodgers series wasn't great, but it's been 5 months and you see no impact, no effect at all of the way last year ended. Based on how they played, the pitching's been ridiculous the last 2 days. They've had timely hitting. Their bench has come up big. Shildt keeps calling them Grit Squad. It's been awesome.
Everything's great.
The banana bread pudding, which you picked up Saturday for me and brought it over to Kristen Jones because we were in the stands. That's like, what's more important, the 4-0 start or the fact that they're selling banana bread pudding now at Petco Park? Everything's been great.
Everything's awesome.
Everything's great.
Everything is awesome.
Until they're down like 1-0 tonight in the second inning.
Yeah, and they get shut out tonight.
Exactly.
The start of the season, they could not have asked for a better start. Pitching on point. Bullpen, amazing. Timely hitting. They're not putting up a bunch of runs. They're not putting up, a 20 spot like the Yankees with torpedo bats.
Right.
But they're getting timely hitting. They're playing great defense. They are getting starting pitching other than King and Cease.
Other than their good starters.
Yeah. Vasquez, 6 shutout on Saturday. Pivetta was damn near perfect yesterday, going 7 shutout. The bullpen has allowed 1 earned run in 16 innings.
Is that what it is? I don't remember the run they allowed.
I think I know it's 1 run over either 16 and a third or 16 and 2/3.
Amazing.
But they have been fantastic. We thought Saturday was going to be a problem with them because all their top bullpen arms were down. Figure out a way to win that game as well. Every move that Mike Shildt has made so far early on has worked beautifully. The pinch hitting of Gavin Sheets on opening day comes through. Saturday night, pinch hitting Yuli Gurriel comes through. Brandon Lockridge yesterday comes through. The bullpen moves. Moorhome closing out on Saturday night comes through. Jeremiah Estrada last night comes through. Everything that this team has done through the first 4 games, you could not have asked for a better start.
I was convinced by going there Saturday and tweeting out a photo of me and you. I'm like, they're going to lose by 8 runs. They've got Randy Vasquez on the mound. They have no bullpen available to them. I sit down in my seat, and the first 2 batters that Vasquez faces, he walks. I'm like, okay, this is when the series gets, equalized or evened up over the next couple of days. But to Vasquez's credit, 6 scoreless innings. And then yesterday we see Nick Pivetta. You talk about masterclasses. It's 1 start. It's 1 start from Pivetta. But they signed Nick Pivetta to a deal that's going to pay him something like $2 million this year. Now he's going to get his $20+ million over the next 2 years overall. But AJ Preller's got Nick Pivetta here as his number 4 starter. He goes 7 innings and faces the minimum, allows 1 single yesterday. In 7 innings, he threw like 80 pitches. So it's like everything Preller has touched since the start of 2024, by and large, has turned to gold. And that includes the Nick Pivetta signing. I don't know if it's going to continue or for how long. It wasn't always like that, Jim, in 2021, 2023. He hasn't been perfect, but he deserves a lot of credit for 2024 and the start of 2025. The Pivetta thing is savvy, especially with Darvish out. The Pivetta thing, and we don't know what it looks like, but for one night, it looked damn good for Pivetta and the Padres.
There was a moment in the game where the broadcast, which was awful, by the way. I mean, Carl Ravage, are you okay up there, my guy?
Why, you don't like Jeremy Estrada?
When he was talking to Manny, I was so confused. He's like 2,000 hits and 2,000 home runs
amazing.
and
Like,
3,000 hits and
you have 2,350 home runs. Did you ever think you'd have that many? He's like, I'm just trying to play baseball.
He's like, what? Excuse
That's
me?
A lot of home runs I hit.
And then he calls Jeremiah Estrada Jeremy Estrada. But anyway, on the broad,
Jason Haywood.
Yeah. Anyway, besides Carl Ravage maybe being drunk up
or
in the
Ravage.
Ravage? What do I call him? Ravage?
Yeah.
I'm like Carl Ravage.
Yeah, you really are.
There was a moment in the game when David Cohn mentioned Nick Pivetta on the first base side of the mound. And after his outing, when he was talking to Buster Olney, mentioning that it was Ruben Niebla who put him on the first base side of the slab. And that has like opened up the plate for him. Now, I don't know if it was just that simple, but it worked the other night and he was incredible. And then looking at the box score at the end of the game, you realize, oh my gosh, they threw a 1-hit shutout as a team.
Face the minimum
against
Atlanta.
And Atlanta's going to be a good team. I still have faith that Atlanta's going to be good, but oof.
They might start 0-7 because they're playing the Dodgers for the next 3 days. But Atlanta, we do believe will be a playoff contender. Let's hear from Mike Shildt. This was after the sweep, commenting on Nick Pivetta and more. The Padres are 4-0. Here was Mike Shildt postgame.
Nick seemed to throw like every pitch that he needed to all game. What'd you think?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, Nick really welcome to San Diego, Nick Pivetta, right? I mean, dominated counts, life on his heater, really, really good curveball. Sweeper was good. 2-seamer, 9 ground balls, 4 punch outs. Ground balls early. Like I said, he controlled counts. Got some early outs, which allowed him to go, a 7-inning. Really masterful game from Nick in his debut with the Padres.
What do you like about the way Nick kind of carries himself and competes on the mound?
Nick's into it, man. Nick's getting after it. So I appreciate all guys that compete, and everybody competes in their own way. But I just love consistent competition and guys that are up for it. And he clearly is looking to go get it. And what I loved, he was able to harness it and make his pitches and use it and channel it the right way.
start the season 4-0, but more importantly, some really clean baseball. Is this as good as you've hoped in terms of like continuity and what you've been trying to build with growing on last year?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for, Annie. I'm looking for just good, clean, crisp baseball. You know, be ready for any all circumstance, control counts, works off the pitch, and have an idea what we're looking to do, you know, in the sequencing standpoint, from a pitching standpoint, be in the right spots defensively, be on time, and be ready to anticipate plays. And then to Ace's question initially, you know, how we beat the other team is a lot of different ways offensively, and on display tonight. Love Bogey's at bat. You know, we added on lock with the stolen base. I like to rise at bat the first inning. You're talking about, you know, Cotty gets on, boom, he's at second base. Arise, who took good at bats tonight, gets him over. Manny's got the right approach, drives the ball, ends up being a double. Just a lot of good baseball. So, you know, Merrill going the other way for the 2-out base hit to add on, and then of course, you know, later on we get the Toddy gets the RBI, 2 outs to add on and sets our bullpen up.
Mike Shildt in vintage Mike Shildt mode as the Padres are 4-0. Everything's good. I mean, I'm trusting in Preller right now. I'm trusting in Shildt. I'm trusting in this team. It's not going to be this type of straight line. I'm not envisioning 162 wins. I think they'll have less than that this year. Too. But I do. If you're complaining about this start, then I don't know what can make you happy.
What I appreciate is it seems like this team has come out this year with an attitude of like, we're going to at least try to start fast with how Shildt is calling these games on the base path.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're very aggressive. I think the moves that he has made, it's felt almost like he's making moves in a playoff series. You know, do you make these types of moves in regular season games? Maybe, maybe not. But he's been very aggressive to start. That's how I viewed it. Letting Tatis just run wild on the base paths. Manny on opening day running. Jackson Merrill has started out incredibly hot. You know, pinch hitting guys at the right moments, taking guys out at the right times. You know, not taxing your bullpen, but also having a plan for your bullpen. I just think that there was a mindset going into this year to, all right, we're gonna start, or at least try to start out hot. Like we're gonna play aggressive. We're going to go out there with the mindset that we are the aggressor. What was the line from Jackson Merrill on opening day?
Yeah, about like, we don't feel pressure, we apply pressure, essentially.
Yeah, that's what
a t-shirt, by the way.
That's what I feel this team has done to the first 4 games, to the point where there's reports already of the Braves manager considering retirement.
Yeah, he's out. This was the line from Jackson Merrill, and I think it was after opening day. He said that we apply pressure, we don't feel it. And that's the way they've played through 4 games. All right, on the other side, back to the Padres sweep over the Braves. Do we have breaking baseball news or not? We'll share the latest on the other side. Plus, there's a lot going around here in San Diego involving SDFC, Magoon Guth's future with San Diego State or elsewhere. Kevin Acee will join us. Mike Ferrin is on the show. We're here until 6. We have Will Nelson and Bob Dylan tickets to give away. It's Bob and...
Wait, it's Bob and who?
It's Bob and Willie. All right, we've got Lakers basketball tonight. Jim mentioned this during the update. Lakers Rockets, big game actually, late in the regular season. Pre-game coverage at 6:45, tip around 7. You're home for Lakers basketball here in San Diego. San Diego Sports 760. Kevin Acee at 5:30. Mike Ferrin at MLB Network Radio at 3:30. Listen, we can read what's been written and react to it. I don't know if this is accurate or not. In fact, I'm beginning to think it's not because nobody else is reporting on this. But Mike Rodriguez, who, according to his bio, is an MLB insider. He has over 22,000 followers for whatever it's worth. Says, according to my sources, Braves outfielder Jurickson Profar tested positive for some substances banned by the MLB. That alone is fishy.
Well, look, I'm not going to
be suspended.
I mean, I'm not going to rip the guy, even though I ripped the guy on Twitter. It was more or less like a joke. But I mean, he's gotten some stuff right.
Well, apparently you ripped him before and you were wrong and he was right. What has he gotten right before? If someone put in the chat,
I think the Sasaki news.
He had that. Well, what's Sasaki news? He went to the Dodgers?
I mean, Jones, your son
Yeah.
Jones could have broke that news.
Right.
Everybody knew he was going to the Dodgers.
But there's no way we can just run with this.
No.
Even though I'm bringing it up because nobody else is reporting on this, which honestly makes it then unfair to Profar. And also, like, my antennas go up when I hear a player being tested for a banned substance immediately after signing the richest deal in the history of their career. 3 years, $42 million. That's never the time to be suspended for a banned substance.
Man, I really hope it's not true because I love Jurickson Profar. He was at the SDFC game with Manny on Saturday night, got a standing ovation on opening day. There's like really nothing bad you could say about Jurickson Profar in the almost 5 years that he was here. He did so many good things for this team, and he was such a catalyst for last year's 93-win team. He's an all-star. I just really hope this isn't true because that would be a huge bummer.
What would he be using steroids for? Like he's never been a 30 home run hitter,
Well,
and he's been able to stay on field.
Well, it doesn't say what it would be. It's just a banned substance.
I don't buy it until I see it elsewhere. I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah, until I see passing.
Yeah,
then
exactly.
I'm not going to run
like
with it.
who is the fact that someone would put that out there if it's not accurate, by the way, is ridiculous. Like to put that out there and to throw that out regarding Jurickson Profar. I mean, again, I'm talking about it right now, but I thought it was a significant. I mean, to see that, it's got thousands of retweets and thousands of likes and hundreds of comments. So, like, you're going to put that out there. There better be some truth to it, but we'll keep you updated if we learn more on Profar.
And I see people in our YouTube chat. By the way, you can watch us on YouTube, Jon and Jim 760 on YouTube, saying that SI has an article. Do you guys realize that Sports Illustrated is now an AI generated website, right?
Well, they're just taking this tweet and then turning it into an article.
Yeah, they aggregate everything, and they have like an AI generated system that writes articles, and they just aggregate posts and turn it into their own content.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe it until there's a reason to believe it. Again, going back to this weekend, we were there on Saturday, and I watched on Thursday. I thought the reaction that Profar got was fully deserved. The standing ovation he got. I think he'll be remembered here fondly for the role he's played on good teams, including in 2024. I think you could easily make the argument that without Jurickson Profar in 2024, the season isn't as successful as it was a year ago. They didn't offer him the contract. I sat behind someone that was heckling him the whole game as if it was Profar's fault as a free agent that he left and took what is life-changing money for his family and future generations of his family. The Padres didn't even offer him a contract. He got 3 years, $42 million fair and square. What is wrong with that? I hope he succeeds in Atlanta. I hope this report is completely dumbfounded and untrue. I have no ill will towards Jurickson Profar. I think 99% of Padres fans don't either. But when I go to a ballpark and see a Padre fan heckling Jurickson Profar, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Drink a little less. Of all people to heckle, this guy helped you get to 93 wins and helped you get to the second round of the playoffs last year. You got a problem with Jurickson Profar?
John, that is what irrational, clueless fans do.
Irrational or irrational?
Irrational.
Yeah. Okay.
Clueless fans do. Player leaves, gets a contract from another team. Their former team and the fans' favorite team doesn't offer that person a contract.
Right.
Then it's the player's fault, and that player sucks, and I hate that player, and he's an idiot, and he was awful.
Right.
It's like, what?
Right.
Like, there should be no ill will at all towards Jurickson Profar. The Padres were never going to pay that much money. It's been reported multiple times they were never going to pay that money. I don't even think they offered him a contract.
I don't think that would be public knowledge. I haven't seen anyone report on him.
And if they did, it wasn't anywhere close to what he got with the Braves. I thought that it was a fair deal. All we heard in the offseason was, Profar kind of unlocked something last year where it can become sustainable for him throughout the rest of his career. Yet to be seen. Didn't have a great series here in San Diego. No one on the Braves did really, but the same thing with Juan Soto. Everyone's like, I hate Juan Soto. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm sure, because he asked to be traded and he asked to be traded here. And, it's just how fans are with former players. Every former player that leaves here via free agency or gets traded, that player automatically sucks in their mind.
Yeah. And again, I think this is probably the 1%. I think 99% of Padres fans appreciate the role that Jurickson Profar played in their resurgence in the 2020s. I think Profar deserves a lot of that credit. Now that he's in Atlanta, I say give him his flowers, which is what 99% of Padres fans did, I would say, this past weekend. All right, on the other side, I want to switch gears to both SDFC winning against LAFC this past weekend at Snapdragon Stadium in front of a sellout crowd. And Magoon Guth, is he gone or not? We have the latest on Magoon's future as well. We're here until 6 p.m. Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio, will join us at 3:30 as well to react to the Padres 4-0 start. Stay with us. It's Jon and Jim.
All right, this update's brought to you by Caltrans, cleancalifornia.com. Padres sweeping the Braves in their first 4 games of the year. It's their best start. First 4-0 start since 1984. Next up, a 3-game series with the Guardians starting tonight at Petco Park, 6:40 first pitch. Kyle Hart makes his Padres debut. The Padres lineup is out. We will break that down coming up next. SDFC picked up 3 points against LAFC Saturday night at Snapdragon Stadium. They won 3-2. Their first home win in club history. Next up, they'll take on Seattle Sounders on Saturday night at Snapdragon Stadium, 7:30 kickoff. 7 p.m. is when our pregame coverage starts. And tonight we have Lakers basketball on the station as they take on the Houston Rockets at 7 p.m. Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California, John. Then right in the middle of it is a giant piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. Zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
All right, Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio at 3:30. The latest on Magoon Guth's future coming up momentarily as well. Okay, so the lineup is out. And let's just start with the Fernando Tatis Jr. leadoff revelation, which we've been telling you about all offseason.
Is it a revelation or just kind of like a finally, well, I guess it is.
It's like, why didn't they go to it more often? They didn't do it one time last year because Luis Arraez batted leadoff all year. So they start this year with Tatis as their leadoff hitter, and it's been a complete unlocking, so to speak, of Tatis. Now, he's always been great. And I was going to bring this up during Is That Good, the Best and Worst of the Sports Weekend. There's never been a player in baseball history with a higher slugging percentage out of the leadoff spot than Fernando Tatis Jr. Minimum 162 games batting leadoff. That's how good he has been. That's continued this year. So you look at this lineup, Tatis is leading off again. I think they're willing to just plug him in there every single day that he plays. Just plug him in there every single day. It's worked. Why mess with something that is? It's not just worked for 4 games. That's not the point. It's worked in his career.
Every game until I don't know. Until
they win the World Series.
Until further notice, right? You are the leadoff man. His slugging percentage, like you mentioned, 602 career in the leadoff spot. He's healthy. He's not on one leg like he was last year. He's running wild on the base paths. He's a spark plug. He gets things going. I mean, if I'm a pitcher, the last thing I want is the first batter of the game to face Fernando Tatis Jr.
Right.
Or face Shohei Ohtani, right? Like, baseball is always evolving. And now I feel like it's evolving to where these like 5-tool players are, instead of putting them in the cleanup spot or the 3-hole to drive in runs, screw it. We want them to get as many bats as possible, put them in the leadoff spot because they're that dynamic and they can start the game out easily 1-0 or get on first via walk, a hit or whatever, steal second, or they can have they're so dynamic players that putting them in the leadoff spot just makes sense.
I said this yesterday, and it's not to be disrespectful towards Arraez. He's won 3 batting titles, but all things equal, who's the better, more impactful hitter? Fernando Tatis Jr. or Luis Arraez? It's not really particularly close because of the power and speed that Tatis potentially offers to a lineup. A healthy Tatis is one of the best players in the sport. So he's leading off again today. Then Luis Arraez bats second. Arraez is hitless to start the year. He was hitless last year in his first 13 ABs. He won the batting crown. Then you have Machado, Merrill, Cronenworth hits 5th. Xander Bogaerts bats 6th. Gavin Sheets is the DH. Jason Hayward is in left field, and Elias Diaz is catching against a right-handed pitcher. It'll also be Kyle Hart's debut as a starter for the San Diego Padres. But San Diego with a win today on Jackson Merrill bobblehead night. Hopefully hits 2 home runs.
That'd be cool.
I think with a win today, and again, if they come through and get to 5-0, it's something they've never done in the history of the franchise. That's on the line here tonight.
That's incredible.
Isn't it?
To think that, since 1969, they have not one time in their franchise history started a season 5-0. That's crazy. But it'd be pretty cool if they did it tonight. The Guardians lineup's not out, but the one thing with the Guardians that coming in the series that I was keeping an eye on is the health of Jose Ramirez.
Right.
He got hurt over the weekend against the Royals. He did not play yesterday for the Guardians. So is he going to be in the lineup today? I just checked. Their lineup's not out yet. So we'll wait and see on that one. But back to the Tatis and the leadoff spot conversation. I know Luis Ariz is first 13 this year, but if you just go back, I don't know, 1 year ago, he started 0 for 13 with the Marlins, and he still won the batting title. Dude's going to get 600 plus plate appearances this year. 600 if he stays healthy. And I think, John, he's going to have a couple hits in those 600 at-bats.
He'll have 2 or more hits this year. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. So I am not worried at all about Luis Ariz. Not one bit of me is worried about him.
Back-to-back 200-hit seasons.
Yeah.
672 plate appearances last year, 617 plate appearances the year before, 603 the year before. You're right. I mean, there's plenty of time.
And Luis Ariz, you could argue and say he's the best just pure hitter in baseball as far as like average goes. But this team, if you were to ask me, who do they need the most to be unlocked and reach that potential? It's Fernando Tatis Jr. If they get a Fernando Tatis Jr., similar to 2021 or even better where he doesn't get hurt, right? And he steals 30 even bags and he hits 40 plus home runs and has an OPS in the 900s. That is what I would want instead of, and I love Luis Ariz, instead of Luis Ariz hitting 325, 330 in the leadoff spot, but with like 4 home runs and 35 RBI. Like I want Tatis to be unlocked and I want him in the spot that makes that happen, which is the leadoff spot.
I mean, he finished 3rd in MVP voting in 2021, despite not playing a full year. He had 42 home runs. We kind of forget 975 OPS. He stole 25 bases, was caught just 4 times. That's the part of the game of Tatis that he provides that, again, Ariz can hit 340, but he's not going to be running all over the diamond. That's who Tatis used to be. He would steal bases. He's fully capable of stealing 30 plus bases in a season. Believe it or not, he's never done that. Fernando Tatis Jr. has never stolen 30 bases in a year, despite the speed and athleticism. And a big reason why he's never done that, he's never been healthy for a full year. And after 2021, when he ended the season hurt or was, again, missed all 2022, the offseason, the PEDs.
He had moments in 2021 where he missed time because of
shoulder,
the subluxation of his shoulder. Yeah.
Right. But then 2022, and then he starts 2023 still on that suspension, as in he's never really had that full chance to fully put a season together. What we said this since the day he broke in. What is a full season from Fernando Tatis Jr. going to look like? We still can't fully answer that. We've never seen him play 150 games. What is the best of Tatis? Is it 45 home runs? Is it 45 steals? Is it 1,000 OPS? Like, what is the best of Fernando Tatis Jr.? We've seen glimpses of it. What is it over 162? We've never seen it.
We have not. And we've been asking the question, when are we going to see that? And Fernando Tatis Jr., you have to now, when you talk about him, say, if healthy.
Right.
Like, if healthy, he can do these things. He has still not got over the always injured label, because guess what? He's always injured. There's always an injury. There's something in every season where he misses time,
right,
or reasons why he doesn't have put up the best production numbers. There's always a reason. So he's got to go out there and prove it. And through the first 4 games, it's been great to see. That's the type of Fernando Tatis Jr. that all Padres fans want to see for an entire season. It's just, you got to see it before you can actually believe it, because he's never done it before.
And then the other part of this lineup, which you almost like take for granted, it's crazy with the 21-year-old, is like Merrill has just been productive since the day he put a Padres uniform on last year. And that has continued to start this year. And again, you just allow your mind to wander a little bit and just say, what does a healthy Padres lineup look like for an entire year? I thought offensively they might take a step back without Profar, without Higgy. Like I thought offensively maybe this team takes a step back. We'll see. It's only 4 games. The offense hasn't been the complete story. Nobody's hit more than 1 home run. They've hit 3 as a team. They're not exactly the New York Yankees offense at this point, but I think offensively they've been fine. I think they've scored 17 runs off Atlanta in 4 games, or so, over 4 runs a game with their pitching. That's a combination to win. So I like the lineup. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if this is going to be, a top 3 lineup in the National League, but there's a lot to like with this lineup when you think about Tatis, Machado, Merrill, and more.
Well, it's what we talked about all off season. They're very top heavy. They have a great 1 through 4. They have guys in the 5 and 6 hole that, are being looked at to have bounce back years, but they have it in them.
Yep.
They have it in them. And then the bottom of the lineup, 7, 8, 9 is always going to be every single game a concern. And whatever you get out of the 7, 8, 9 hitters, you take it. Like it's just
been good
literally
so
gravy.
far.
Oh, it's been great so far.
Yep.
And so far, the top 4 in their lineup, Merrill, Manny, Tatis, they've all performed. It's about when those guys are in slumps or those guys have 0 for nights, who's going to step up?
Yep.
And so, the top end of their roster is really good, and it's led the way through the first 4 games with help from the others. And that's been fantastic to see. You love to see that.
And I'll be honest with you, it's such a small sample size, but I've been completely content with Xander Bogaerts at this point. He's walked. He's come through with a couple of timely hits. Again, very small sample. He showed it to us before for months. He's had Aprils. He's had Septembers. We're asking for a full season. Completely fair with what he's earning. Completely fair to ask for a full season. But I'm not discouraged by what I've seen from Xander to start the year.
He's hitting the ball hard. And it's not the greatest thing. Like
he hasn't had 2 home runs.
No, yeah. But you're right. He's doing little things. I didn't like the error that he made opening day. That was pretty inexcusable. There's been a couple times where he's had runners in the scoring position. He's at the plate with less than 2 outs, and he didn't come through. But for a team that started out 4-0, there is literally nothing that I could sit here today to complain about. There's nothing. Yes, you like to see better performances from some guys, but what do we say all the time? If you win, you deal with it and you live with it.
Yeah. Now the banana bread pudding guy at Seaside Market, did they sell out early? They did, but they restocked and had it available in the middle of the game. All right. Is it a budding rivalry? We'll explain on the other side. The latest on Magoon Guth, Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio at 3:30. We're here until 6. It's Jon and Jim. All right, new in 2025, the all-new iHeartRadio app. Make sure to download it and put San Diego Sports 760 in your presets. Put us in that top spot, like a car radio dial. Add Jon and Jim in your presets. You can listen back to any hour of our show, any interview on the show. It's the all-new iHeartRadio app. It's now available. Download it and put San Diego Sports 760 and Jon and Jim in your presets. Right, Jim? Have you done that?
Of course,
your presets.
Of course I have. You ready? Here we go.
What are your presets? Like all of our competition?
No, because they're not on the iHeartRadio app. The best app in the game. Look at, here we go. Presets. Boom. I got San Diego Sports 760, my number one in my presets. I got Jon and Jim.
Mm-hmm.
I got SDFC on the pitch, and I got Aztec Locker Room.
Why is Call Me Daddy in there? Or whatever. What's that podcast
called? Oh, my God. Now, my question for you, do you still not have the updated app?
Well, it's a complex. I almost need to send an email to corporate.
I was talking to Mary, our boss, the other day about this.
I know who she is.
I'm just,
but for our listeners,
they don't, Jon. And I told her that you still do not have the updated app. She mentioned that she can email corporate for you.
Mary, can you email corporate?
She's not listening.
Why?
You need to send an email to her.
Okay.
But seriously, if you have not updated the iHeartRadio app, you got to do it. You got to put San Diego Sports 760 in your presets. It would be greatly appreciated because we're still in a competition with everybody in this building to be the number one preset in the building here, and we need your help. So
you'll thank us later.
Yeah. Yes, you will.
You'll thank us later. All right. So Jim did it. He pulled off the impossible. Brent's laughing. He went to Petco Park, downtown San Diego, and saw the Padres play a baseball game. Now, he didn't play, but he went to the stadium and he watched the game with his two eyes. He then, listen to me clearly and don't drive off the road. He then drove to Snapdragon Stadium, where he later watched SDFC beat LAFC. He did all of that in one day. So take us through the nightcap. SDFC picks up their first ever home win, and they do it against a team from LA. They beat LAFC 3-2 in front of a sellout crowd. You pulled off this doubleheader that's rarely been accomplished.
Look,
How was it?
I wasn't the only one that did this. I saw a bunch of people do this.
What do you mean you were as you were driving, other people were like, Jim?
Oh, you idiot. On social media, like saying that they went to the Padres game and then they went to SDFC.
Okay.
Like our boys DSG, they're in the chat right now.
They did the doubleheader?
They did the double dip. They went to the Padres game and then they went to SDFC. I saw a bunch of people do it. I didn't know like the logistics of, all right, when do I have to leave and this and that. But it worked out perfectly. I highly recommend. I don't know when this is going to happen again. I'll have to look, but I highly recommend if you are a big San Diego sports fan to absolutely go and do the double dip with the Padres and then SDFC. It was awesome. Now, I didn't expect SDFC to outscore the Padres on Saturday night.
Both won.
But both won. And it took a while for anything to happen in the Padres game, but still, they won. It was a pitcher's duel, and the place was packed. Obviously, you were there with your family, we ate banana bread pudding together.
Yeah, thank you.
Which was awesome. And then I thought the first half of the SDFC match was incredible because it was back and forth. It was high scoring for soccer standards, 3-2 at the half. SDFC went up 3-0 within the first 38 minutes of that match. It was insane. And then LAFC scores 2 goals in stoppage time in the first half. And you're like, what the hell happened? But I thought the atmosphere of both games was awesome. You got to sell out at Petco. You got to sell out at Snapdragon. Both teams won. It was just a great night. I liked it a lot.
By the way, it's the only time this year you can do it because the only other 4 p.m. starts for the Padres, SDFC either isn't playing or is not home. So the only 4 o'clock start with a 7 p.m. or later start for SDFC was Saturday.
That was
the
it?
only time this year there'll be 5:40 Padres starts.
Ooh,
or 5:40 is pretty tough if there's a 7:30 match.
Will any of
across town?
But will any of the Saturday games be flexed to Fox?
Maybe that's a possibility. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe. But as of now, because I just looked through the entire schedule for the Padres on Saturday, and they're playing either at 5:40 or 6:40, or when they do play 4:15 on Fox, there's one or two examples of that. SDFC is either not playing that day or playing on the road.
And what about Sundays? Because Sundays usually the Padres are 110.
That's a fair point. You're bringing up some fair points now,
I
Jim.
don't know if SDFC will play any more Sunday. I know they played a couple Sundays this week or this year. Maybe one Sunday.
I'll look it up.
Also, you got to look at Wednesdays as well. I know SDFC plays a couple Wednesday matches.
Right. There's very few, though.
Very few.
Yep.
And the Padres also have a couple not a couple, but when they're at home on Wednesdays, like they are this upcoming Wednesday, they have a start time of 1:10. So,
well, here's what I know. Because with San Diego FC, no one had any real idea of what to expect on field. How could you? It's an expansion franchise. Nobody knew if they'd be great, good, bad, indifferent, somewhere in the middle. You cannot ask for more out of San Diego FC with 3 wins and 11 points through 6 matches. They're tied for 3rd place right now in the Western Conference. And the difference between the Padres starting 4-0 and SDFC starting with their 11 points through 6 matches is there's only 34 matches in Major League Soccer. So 6 of 34, like you're working your way into the season. There's still a ton of soccer to be played, but it's impressive. It's not like, hey, they won their opener on the road against LA, against the Galaxy, and then they went into the tank. No, through 6 matches, and they've dealt with injuries. They've played very well. Now, I don't know if it's going to continue or not, but I think it's very real to say that SDFC should compete for a playoff spot. I think that's completely fair. 6 matches in 3rd place with 11 points. I don't know the future, but I think based on everything that I know, 9 of the 15 teams in the West are making the postseason. They should be able to compete for a postseason spot.
I don't think they need to prove anything else as far as are they a good team or not. They're a good team. They're a good club. They're going to compete. Every match, they are, they're on the offense as far as attacking and making it, so they have ample opportunities to score. I think that the way they have played, it's an exciting brand of soccer. If you are a casual like myself, I enjoy it. To pick up 2 wins against both LA teams in your first 5 matches, that's incredible. And LAFC, we talked to Jake Zivin last week, and he mentioned, along with Inter Miami, those are the 2, favorites going into the season to win the MLS Cup. And, that entire match on Saturday night, at least through the first 38 minutes, they completely dominated LAFC. They made LAFC look like an expansion team, and San Diego look like the veteran club that LAFC is.
We have breaking news. Jurickson Profar has officially been suspended for 80 games for violating Major League Baseball's substance abuse policy. An absolute shocker. It is official. Jurickson Profar will be suspended for 80 games. He has violated Major League Baseball's PED policy. This per Jeff Passan at ESPN. He actually credits Mike Deportes, the account we talked about 30 minutes ago. Full reaction on the other side. Then we'll get Mike Ferrin's reaction at 3:30. Kevin Acee's reaction at 5:30. An absolute shocker. Jurickson Profar, after signing a 3-year, $42 million deal and opening the season in San Diego, has been suspended for steroids. We'll react on the other side. Hour 2 of Jon and Jim. That is a shocker. We've got full reaction coming up next on Jon and Jim.
All right, this update is brought to you by Caltrans, cleancalifornia.com. Breaking news in baseball. Jeff Passan just confirmed it. Jurickson Profar has been suspended for 80 games for violating MLB's PED policy. Mike Rodriguez was on the report first. Moving over to Padres. They take on the Guardians starting tonight for a 3-game series at Petco Park. 6:40 first pitch. Kyle Hart makes his Padres debut. SDFC picking up 3 points against LAFC Saturday night as they won 3-2. Their first home win in club history. Next up, they'll take on Seattle Sounders Saturday at Snapdragon Stadium, 7:30 kickoff, 7 p.m. pregame. And we have Lakers basketball that you can hear right here on the station tonight as they take on the Houston Rockets at 7 p.m. Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California, then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives. Not one piece, John. Together, let's change that. Clean California. 0 litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
Padres starting the season strong.
First pitch, driven deep and far to left off the bat of Nando. It'll ride out of here.
A sweep of the Braves with the Guardians coming to Petco tonight. SDFC early and often versus LAFC.
Leadoff is approaching the 18, and the ball missed, but Magoon does it. Gone.
A 3-2 win has them tied for 3rd in the West. Plus, the Final Four is set. Time for some positive reflection with Jon and Jim.
All right, San Diego, Southern California, what's going on? This is hour 2 of Jon and Jim. We will have Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio, with full reaction to the news of the hour that Jurickson Profar, the longtime Padre who just got standing ovations here all weekend long for his time in a Padres uniform, has been popped, so to speak. Suspended 80 games. Chelsea Janes, Washington Post now reporting it's for the substance HCG, which was made infamous by Manny Ramirez and others back in the day. So Jurickson Profar suspended 80 games. He will not be paid for those 80 games. It's a half season. He had just signed that 3-year, $42 million deal with Atlanta prior to this year. You talk about a bad start for the Braves that's gotten worse. You're 0-4. You're now without your starting left fielder for at least the next half season. I have no sympathy for Jurickson Profar. I was his biggest proponent. I have sung his praises. I got no sympathy here. None at all. This has been laid out, Jim, for 10 plus years. He just signed the deal of a lifetime. He just threw away a sixth of that money. 80 of those games is 1/2 year of the 3-year deal, which is $7 million to test positive for HCG. So we'll hear from him presumably at some point. This is incredibly disappointing. He's no longer a Padre. We've gone through this with Padres. We went through it in detail with Tatis. But to me, this is incredibly disappointing for someone like Jurickson Profar in his mid-30s signing a deal like this to get popped for steroids. It just is.
I love Jurickson Profar. Padres fans love the guy. He was beloved here. He did so many things in a Padres uniform that helped his team win.
Absolutely. We just said it last hour.
That it just sucks to see this. I think, is it bad of me that my first thought is with how close he is to a lot of the players in the Padres clubhouse? I just am sitting here praying and hoping that Profar did this like on his own and it was a rogue thing from Profar and that nobody in the Padres clubhouse like was involved with what Profar did.
I think it's a fair thought because I think it's fair because we've seen it firsthand in the Padres clubhouse, this decade. I mean, we went through this with Tatis. We know the relationship, obviously, Profar and Tatis have. The relationship Jurickson has with the Tatis family. Again, you can't put 2 and 2 together. You can't say 2 + 2 is 4 when you're talking about someone testing positive. The other player has already tested positive. This is to start the year. Major League Baseball has issued a statement on it. Again, it's HCG. I don't know if there'll be another shoe to drop just across the sport or if it's just going to be Profar in general. But man, every single time this happens, I always have a jaw-dropping moment, but I probably shouldn't. It's continually happened for years on end, even though we know that this has been tested for routinely for a decade plus at this point. Like, what are you trying to get away with if you're in the major leagues at this point? Players are always trying to find an edge. End of sentence. Players are always trying to find an edge, and you got to do it within the rules. And if you don't, something like this is always a possibility.
So now, for all the things we said in the offseason, why didn't they resign Profar? If you're AJ Preller,
Good call.
good job, man. I mean, like nobody could have nobody could have predicted this like at all. But there is a scenario where Profar could have returned and this could have happened.
Absolutely.
And it could have just e-braked the start of the season to a massive halt.
Could have torpedoed their season without the bats.
I like that, John. Good job. Nice. That was good.
Again, I'm not in their shoes, Jim. I don't know what it's like. I know this. If I get a 3-year radio deal that's going to pay me like $1 million a year, I'm going to play by the rules because that's life-changing. Yeah. If I work my career, I'm in my 40s. If I work my career and finally get paid off, by the way, Profar never had.
No.
He's never made the absurd contract. He's never had it. He's made money.
No.
He plays in Major League Baseball, but he's never made $40 million with one deal. And now he gets it and he jeopardizes it.
Just stupid. What are you thinking, dude? It is ridiculous. Now, it bums me out. It really does because I love Jurickson Profar. And I was a huge proponent in the offseason to have the Padres re-sign him. A lot of people are like, "Oh, one-hit wonder," and I'm like,
I thought he had unlocked something.
I watched Jurickson Profar's every at bat in a Padres uniform, and the guy brought something to the team that you just don't see in a box score. And losing that's going to be tough to replace. So then now seeing that after he gets his big contract, he gets popped for PEDs and he's out for 80 games. That's just incredibly disheartening. And it just bums you out because you also know too that there are a lot of people in that clubhouse, big names in the Padres clubhouse that are really close with Jurickson, like really close. And so, yes, does my mind wander to, I just hope this was on his own. I'm hoping that this Profar taking PEDs was an isolated incident and it doesn't leak its way into the Padres clubhouse. I really hope not, because the entire offseason he was working out with Tatis. There were articles of Tatis's dad and Profar, fixing his swing and whatnot and working out together. And seeing him at the SDFC game with Manny, and we know Manny's thoughts on them not re-signing Profar and how bummed he was that the Padres didn't re-sign him and the loss of him. I'm just hoping that this is an isolated incident because this doesn't affect the Padres in that clubhouse.
Unless it does. I would say this because I think this is now fair because Profar has invited this scrutiny.
He has, yeah.
Is his 2024 season above board? This guy never hit like this in his career, Jim. He never had a season like 2024. There was nothing close. He was a career 700 OPS player. Heading into last year, he has an 839 OPS. So I'm not saying that it isn't, but I'm not saying that it is. And I would never say that unless he wasn't just popped 80 games for taking steroids. So the scrutiny is now going to be there. This will stick with him. This is part of the story. It just isn't baseball. It's not football. It's not basketball. Nobody cares in football if an offensive lineman misses 4 games because of steroids. It's never part of the story. In baseball, it is the story. Fernando Tatis Jr., I can say this definitively, Jim. He can put up Hall of Fame numbers and not go to the Hall of Fame. We've seen the story play out. So this is part of the story. Whether you think it is or not, I've watched how this has played out in baseball. It is forever part of the story. It's like a scarlet letter in this sport. So it's going to open up all kinds of scrutiny and second guessing. And you better hope and pray from a Padres perspective this has no impact on the San Diego Padres.
Because we're talking about this like right now, acting like he's on the Padres. He's not.
No, but he was.
Yeah. And to your point, it kind of, and I'm already seeing on social media, like, it puts a little bit of a damper on the success of last season, because last season was so special for the entire team and especially Profar. I mean, he was in so many big moments that now when you look back on those big moments, you can't help but think in the back of your mind, like, was he or was he not? And it kind of puts a little bit of a damper on some of the big moments the Padres had last year, because Profar was in countless amounts of them. He was in so many. Dodger series, Profar was in a big, game 2, right? It was crazy. Regular season, the first thing that comes to my mind is like the Nationals, and then the Will Smith thing and whatnot. But just a brutal blow for Jurickson Profar, because he's so beloved, and now you got this on your resume, and it's not something that you can play off as like, oh, ringworms. Like, no, you took legitimate PEDs that are clearly on the ban list, and there's no hiding from this. It just sucks for him. I hate it for him. It's awful.
Let me ask you this, because I don't know the answer to this, and it's something maybe I'll Google at the break. This decade, who are the biggest names in Major League Baseball to be suspended for PED use? Obviously, Fernando Tatis Jr. would be number 1, correct, of the 2020s. Where would Jurickson Profar rank among the players that have been popped for PED usage this decade? There are not countless examples over the last 4 or 5 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's not dozens of major leaguers, of high-performing or high-profile major leaguers that have been suspended. So Tatis and Profar, are they 1 and 2 this decade of players that have been suspended for PED use? Certainly Fernando Tatis Jr. has to be number 1.
Probably, and it's why I'm sitting here saying I'm just really hoping that this is an isolated incident with Jurickson Profar, because we know how close him and Tatis are and how much they work out in the offseason together. Tatis has been already suspended for PEDs. Now Jurickson Profar suspended for PEDs. Man, am I going to just now sit here and be like, okay, please, please, please don't have all of a sudden the Padres make a random move for an outfielder, and then you start hearing rumblings of something with Tatis. I hope that's not the case. I really do. But yeah, it's just, wow, man. Did not expect that.
Here are the most notable players of the decade. They're all tied in some form or fashion to the Padres. Robinson Cano obviously wasn't in San Diego, but with the Mets in 2020. Fernando Tatis Jr., August 12th, 2022. And Jurickson Profar, March 31st, 2025. Those are the most notable players of the decade not tied to, but suspended for PED use. And you kind of have to go back a while. I mean, the Tatis thing is so big when you look at it in the grand scheme here. Like, a player of his caliber to be suspended, you'd have to go back to like A-Rod or Miguel Tejada to find a player of Tatis's caliber suspended for PED use. And it's just, I hate to bring it up because I feel as if Tatis has learned from that experience in 2021, 2022. And this has nothing to do with Tatis. I'm not tying this to Tatis, but my point is, when something like this happens and Profar and Tatis were so close, and Profar was in that Padres clubhouse, how can my mind not go back to when Tatis was suspended for steroids? I'm just thinking about it all right now because of what's happened here with Profar.
Yeah, the mind's racing, and I just look at it as they were so close. He was so close. Jurickson Profar was so many people in that Padres, clubhouse, that you just hope that. I mean, Jackson Merrill was wearing a Jurickson Profar T-shirt on opening day after the game.
Right.
Mr. Relevant.
Right.
Manny was hanging out with Profar at the SDFC match on Saturday night. Brought him to the game, was on the big board. Everyone cheered and went crazy. Tatis and Profar are like best buddies off the field. And in the offseason, they work out together all the time. So, like, when they work out together in future off seasons, are you going to sit here as a Padres fan and just like hope that nothing happens with the two that could get them in trouble with baseball? Because now they have both been popped and suspended for 80 games in their careers for PEDs.
We will read you Jurickson Profar's statement on the other side. He has issued a statement as he has been suspended for 80 games. Plus, we'll get Mike Ferrin's reaction from MLB Network Radio. Mike Ferrin, friend of the show, will join us coming up at 3:30. We are here until 6. Kevin Acee is on the show today at 5:30 as well. Jon and Jim. All right, and keep up with San Diego Sports 760 anytime, anywhere, whether you're stepping out of the car or settling in at home. Just ask your Google or Alexa smart speaker to play AM 760 or stream it live through the iHeartRadio app. It's never been easier to stay connected with your favorite shows like this one. San Diego Sports 760 goes where you go. John Heyman, who doesn't always get everything right, is reporting that Profar is ineligible for the postseason. I don't remember that being part of the deal when you get suspended within a season, but he's reporting not only will he be suspended for 80 games, he will be ineligible for any postseason. Now, Atlanta's got to get there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's fully accurate or not, but that's another damning part of this. And we can read the Profar statement, but Profar is accepting the penalty. Now, he's not saying he knowingly took a substance, but he's accepting the penalty. That to me says that he knows what he did. He's not appealing it.
Yeah. Now, if I'm looking at this from a Padres perspective, this helps the Padres because the Braves are a team that you are still going to be competing with potentially for a playoff spot. Now, winning the first 4 games against them and sweeping them, you now have the tiebreaker over the Braves this year because you only play them 3 more times. So that's really good news. That's why the first series of the year is pretty important, and if the Braves end up having a bad year, and this is like part of it, that Jurickson Profar suspension, and then starting out 0-4, good. That's what you want to see if you're a Padres fan. You want to see a team that would be in direct competition with you for potentially a wild card spot to have a bad year and have an off year. So from the Padres standpoint, if you're a fan of the Padres, you're looking at this, and how you should look at it is, yeah, it's a bummer for Profar. You hate to see it, but it helps the Padres out theoretically, right?
Yeah, you hate to see it in this manner.
You do.
That's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's zero sum. We talk about that in sports, and you want to see the Padres in the postseason. I just don't want to see the career arc of Jurickson Profar now include this, which is now a part of it. I mean, Profar has had a nice career and had a nice tenure in San Diego, but he never reached this status until right now. He never got that multi-year deal that's going to pay him like this until right now. He finally gets it. He kind of reaches the top of the mountain, so to speak, for a major leaguer, 10-year major leaguer. And then boom, off your best season in the major leagues, you're popped for steroids for 80 games.
Yeah.
It's just, you do hate to see that.
Yeah. And it will affect the Padres inside that clubhouse as far as like guys being bummed. Marty is down there, and she said, let me just pull this tweet up. She said, understandably, there aren't any players around for comment on this story as it has just broke inside the clubhouse. So my guess is nobody wants to talk about it. I'm sure Mike Shildt will be asked about it coming up, but the end of the day, Jurickson Profar is not a part of this team anymore. So it shouldn't affect the Padres in any way, other than guys being like bummed out that they see one of their good friends being suspended for PED uses. So yeah, we're talking about Jurickson Profar in an isolated sense right now, but at the end of the day, I mean, this doesn't really, and it shouldn't really affect the Padres, other than maybe helping them because the Braves are a team that they're going to be in competition with theoretically the whole year for maybe a playoff spot.
Here's the Profar statement. Today is the most difficult day of my baseball career. I'm devastated to announce I've been suspended for 80 games by MLB and the commissioner's office for testing positive for a banned substance this offseason, by the way, Jim. This is especially painful for me because anyone who knows me and has seen me play knows I'm deeply passionate about the game. There's nothing I love more than competing with my teammates and being a fan favorite. I want to apologize to the entire Braves organization, my teammates, and the fans. It is because of my deep love and respect for this game that I would never knowingly do anything to cheat it. I've been tested my entire career, including 8 times last season alone, and have never tested positive. I would never willingly take a banned substance, but I take full responsibility and accept Major League Baseball's decision. I'm devastated that I won't be on the field with my teammates for the next 80 games. I look forward to competing again at the highest level this season upon my return. Couple of interesting things in there happened this offseason. That's what Jurickson Profar wrote.
Yeah, my ears perked up when I heard
this
that.
Offseason, and he's never knowingly taken a banned substance, but he's not appealing the decision by Major League Baseball. So deduce what you want, but he's not appealing it. He's never knowingly done it, and it happened this offseason.
Yeah, because it's just a bummer because Profar was such a fan favorite here. Everybody loved Profar.
Yeah.
I still think people will still like Profar for what he did. He didn't get suspended while he was in a Padres uniform. He's not in a Padres uniform anymore. I mean, after a player leaves, it's like, okay, you're not affecting the Padres. So what you did in a Padres uniform, I look at that. I appreciate what Profar did here. He didn't get suspended last year. He got suspended this year while part of the Braves. But the part in there saying that he got tested positive in the offseason, again, my mind wanders and it races. And how could it not? God, I'm just hoping. I'm fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything crossed that nothing here is linked or associated with anything involving Fernando Tatis Jr. I just hope.
Yeah, and like someone was saying in the chat, like, are you really going to go with the like guilty by association angle?
I'm not.
No, I mean, Tatis has already been popped. There's no associate. I mean, they are guilty by association at the end of the day because they've both been popped. It's not by association. They're both guilty. The Tatis story, while we've all moved past it and we think this guy is utterly brilliant and we're all thrilled by the way he has started his season, something like this brings you back to when it happened.
Yep.
Like it's one of those
like
things
PTSD.
like it's hard to get away from. I mean, we have gotten away from it. You've listened to us. No, we don't routinely, come on the air and say, oh, remember when Fernando Tatis Jr. tested positive for steroids? It's no longer a talking point until it is a talking point. And again, it's an accurate point to say that Tatis isn't guilty now because Profar is guilty now. That's completely fair. But what's also fair is that they have like a brotherhood. They train in the offseason. Tatis was popped previously. Profar's been popped now. That's all truth. They're best of friends. They've both been popped. Do with it what you want. That's the truth.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Tatis is eventually going to get suspended again for PEDs. I'm not. I'm just hoping that this is an isolated incident with Jurickson Profar and that Profar did this on his own. That's all I'm saying. But it's if you don't immediately, when you read that and Profar's history with his friendships, right, and who he works out with in the offseason, it's hard not to automatically think like, okay, please, let's not see anything involving Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying,
and hopefully we don't. And this story, is a 24-hour news cycle story, and we all move on. And the Padres continue to be the Padres that we've seen to start the year, and they're able to keep this team on the field togeteven. So
I just got to address this real quick before we go to break. People in our chat right now, they're completely misunderstanding what we're saying. I don't even know how to Slippus, whatever your name is. What are you two hosts trying to say, that Tatis might be implicated here too? You're crossing our fingers. Jim, you implied that it could be linked to Tatis just right now. When did I say that?
No, you're just putting two and two together, and it doesn't make four like we said earlier. But how could your mind not wander, knowing that Tatis has previously been tested for steroids positively, and now Profar test positive for steroids, and they train together, and they're the best of friends, and they spent the offseason together? Doesn't mean Tatis did it.
No,
it doesn't mean that. But you'd feel a lot better about the situation right now if Jurickson Profar didn't test positive for steroids, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and also if you didn't know that he was training with, or he wasn't training with Fernando Tatis Jr. all off season. By no means am I saying Tatis is all of a sudden going to be popped here. My mind wanders, and how could it not? And you're just sitting here being like, I hope nothing happens, because that would be a bummer. And I'm going to give Tatis the benefit of the doubt, even though I probably shouldn't, because he's already been popped once. But you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I just hope that I'm not proven wrong.
I want to hear from Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio. He will join us next.
All right, this update is brought to you by Caltrans, cleancalifornia.com. The breaking news in baseball today, Jurickson Profar has been suspended 80 games for violating Major League Baseball's PED policy. Padres start a 3-game series with the Cleveland Guardians tonight at Petco Park, 6:40 first pitch. Kyle Hart makes his debut for the Padres tonight. Moving over to SDFC, they beat LAFC to win their first home match in club history on Saturday night. Next up, they take on Seattle Sounders on Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff. 7 p.m. is when our pregame coverage starts. And tonight we have Lakers basketball on the station. You can listen to the Lakers as they take on the Houston Rockets starting at 7 p.m. Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California, then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives. Not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California, zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
All right, Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio, friend of the show. I wanted this to be all positive, and does he think the Padres can go undefeated this year? It seems likely right now at 4-0.
161-1 or 162-0?
It seemed like it was going to happen, but we get this breaking news out of baseball. And again, Jurickson Profar was such a key part of the success of the 2024 Padres, and he signs that big deal. And unfortunately for Profar, we learned this afternoon he's been popped for steroids, and he'll be suspended for 80 games. So, Mike, we always appreciate your time, but what is your reaction to this? Not the first suspension in baseball, probably won't be the last. Jurickson Profar coming off a career year will miss the next 80 games. What's your reaction? Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, well, my pleasure, and he'll be ineligible for the postseason as well.
All right.
You guys are well aware of what the rules are, but listen, I think it's always a surprise when you see guys in this day and age who are popped for it. He was popped for something that it was actually the same thing that Manny Ramirez got caught for the first time, which is something that's used as a masking agent for when you start, up on, I guess it's after you cycled off steroids and into, I know this is not from experience. I want you to know this is from doing a little research on it. And you start producing testosterone on your own again, that this is something that works as kind of a masking agent for it. And it is used a lot of times in pregnancies and as I don't know if it's entirely for, folks that are trying to get pregnant or if it is with women who are pregnant, but that's the main use of this drug. Listen, Profar took responsibility for it, said that he would never do it knowingly. In a little bit in the defense of just about any player internationally is that there are things that are available over the counter in other countries that would be banned in the U.S. and wouldn't be. But it really is no excuse because you are supposed to call the Players Association. There's a hotline that they have if you have any question of anything that you're going to put into your body, and they will clear it or deny it before you take it. So it's careless at the very least. It's reckless and cheating at the worst. And it's a bad break for a Braves team that has gotten off to a miserable start thanks to the Padres.
So, here in San Diego, when you see this, it just hurts you because Profar, was a big fan favorite here. And obviously he's not on the team anymore. So theoretically, it doesn't affect the Padres this year. But we have PTSD here, Mike, with, what happened with Fernando Tatis Jr. And again,
sure,
I am not at all saying Tatis is involved in any of this. It just makes your mind just wanders. It just does. Profar was training with Tatis all off season. Both guys have now been suspended for PEDs. I hate that my mind wanders to that.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of hate that it does too. I think it's probably, wandering to a spot that this is the kind of thing like when you're up in the middle of the night and you have weird thoughts, that's kind of where I would leave that.
Yeah.
I remember the stuff that Tatis, tested positive for was not this, it was something and that is actually in treatments for ringworm. And so, I don't know if you want to take Tatis at his word or not. I'm going to leave that up to the individual to do on that, but I don't see that as being the case. And listen, Profar was hanging out with Manny last night or the other night at the San Diego SC game. Right. So I don't know. I just don't like. I don't think it's guilt by association or anything like that. I think everybody makes their own decisions, and they're grown-ups. Like the Jerks and Profar is over 30. Like, he should be making better decisions on what he's putting into his body, whether this is just carelessness or recklessness.
No doubt about it. Mike Ferrin is with us. It's kind of, I think the right word is unbelievable. You sign the richest deal of your career, 3 years, $42 million, and then you're suspended 80 games, 4 games into your contract. By the way, here's a quote from Mike Shildt. I love Jerks and Profar no more or no less than I did an hour ago. Said he doesn't know the circumstances, but will love and support Jerkson. I mean, Mike, you've covered the sport for a long time. It's just been a storyline that's been weaved through the last quarter century. No matter what we say about it, no matter how they divvy out these suspensions, it could be 162 games. It could be a lifetime ban. For whatever reason, they haven't fully been able to get it out of the game, right?
I mean, they never will. Like, I mean, that's the thing is somebody always thinks that they're going to get around the rules, right? Like, I mean, listen, think about how testing and bans have gone for the last 40 plus years when it comes to steroids in international sports, and there are still suspensions for it, right? And there are still people that are trying to create ways to get around the testing and around the rules. And I don't know how much of that is happening currently with baseball players, but I'm sure that there are some that are scofflaws, right? Like, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't think that they're going to get caught, and they're looking for a shortcut and an advantage. So I think, to me, the biggest thing is that the testing works, right? Like, as you're seeing guys get popped, that to me gives me confidence that what they're doing is right, and that the way that they're handling this is right, which is that when somebody is cheating, that they get caught. So that's kind of the way I look at it at this point, because it's never going to be completely eradicated. And, while we don't see that many at the major league level, we do see 1 or 2 a year. We see a number at the minor league level, a lot of times for players who are in the Dominican Summer League. So like there's a disproportionate number that come from the lowest levels of the minor leagues that are international players. And I think that's something that's way above my pay grade in terms of why that's happening, but I think it is something that the league continues to be mindful of.
All right, let's talk about something positive here, Mike, and that's the Padres 4-0 start.
Yeah.
How surprised are you?
Was that good?
It's very good. Yes. Surprised by this start. What do you make of their 4-0 start here?
Well, I mean, listen, every win you get is one that's banked that you don't need to get later on. So, I mean, I think it's great for the Padres. I mean, like we talked this winter, I think it's a pretty good team. I think the fact that they did it with Michael King not pitching well was really impressive. I think the fact that they got good work the last 2 days out of, Nick Pivetta and Randy Vasquez was really, I mean, that was huge, especially Vasquez's performance, right? Because there's been so much uncertainty kind of at the back end of the rotation with the Darvish injury and with Matt Waldron getting hurt in spring training. So I think it's a really good start. I mean, the offense didn't really lay the Braves to waste. But I think it's going to be, the top third of that lineup is going to be pretty good. And, and top 2/3 almost of that lineup should be pretty good. So it's a great start. 4-0, they're undefeated, and, they get back at it again, with 4 games banked already. And that's certainly, good news for them and a great start. Like, I'm not going to put too much stock in it. I don't think it's, like teams win 4 games in a row a lot over the course of the season. We'll also lose 4 in a row a lot over the course of the season. It just is more noticeable, I think, when it's the only record that's on the scoreboard. But it certainly is a great start for the Padres and a good sign.
Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio, back with us here on Jon and Jim. The Nick Pivetta signing, and to your point, it's only been 4 total games for the team and just 1 start for Pivetta. He goes 7 innings, allows 1 hit, faces the minimum. It appears just even when they made the signing, it was savvy what they're paying him here over the first couple of years of what is technically a 4-year deal. With you, Darvish, starting the year on the IL, it even seems more savvy, right? To have Pivetta in the middle of that rotation, hopefully to give the Padres some security here in 2025 and beyond.
Well, I think, I mean, at the very least, you're going to get innings. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, Pivetta has been, a serviceable starter. I wouldn't say a star or even really close to it in his time in Boston. He'll run through stretches where he's unhittable for 6 or 7 starts, and then he'll have another 6 or 7 that aren't great, but he's going to eat a bunch of innings for you. He's going to, provide some really good outings like he did yesterday. I think everybody's kind of been waiting for Pivetta to take another step forward. It just has never happened for him. And, it seems like there was maybe a little bit of an adjustment in a couple of his pitches. And I believe he moved over on the rubber too. I mean, listen, like this is one of the things I think that is underrated with the Padres. It doesn't get talked about enough. Is that Ruben Niebla was one of the best pitching coaches in the business. I mean, that guy's unbelievable. And, I think if you can get buy-in from, your pitchers on changes that work, and it helps that he's had success helping guys. So, listen, I think it was a great move because they needed innings at the very least. And the peak is what you saw yesterday in his performance.
So the big talk around baseball through the first weekend is these torpedo bats here, Mike.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, honestly, I texted John. I go, "This can't be legal," but it is, and
it is.
I don't know if it's just the Brewers pitching sucks or these torpedo bats are really helping the Yankees. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, listen, the Brewers just put their 9th pitcher on the injured list today. Aaron Savali went on the IL. Remember, and he started yesterday with 3 innings and had to leave with a hamstring issue, right? So I think a lot of it, if you looked at it, was something like nearly twice as many pitches or fastballs at 90 miles an hour or less than any other team threw over the first weekend of the season. Came from the Brewers. So I think that probably answers a lot of it. The torpedo bat is kind of a cool concept. And, I was watching a video today from Marucci Sports. They have been working on these bats for a while. It started to get a little attention last year, I think, among players when Giancarlo Stanton used one in the postseason and had a great postseason, won the ALCS MVP award. It's not something that's all that new. Cody Bellinger said that he tried it last year when he was with the Cubs. I know Dansby Swanson was using one yesterday when he homered, and Davis Schneider's been using it in Toronto. And all of these things, it makes sense, right? It's the rules on the bat are they can't be longer than 42 inches and it can't be wider at its widest point than 2.61 inches in circumference, right? So, how you balance that makes sense. And this is something that baseball bat companies have been working on variations on this for a long time. I don't know if you remember back when Paul Goldschmidt won the MVP award. I believe that was the year that he started using that hockey puck handle, right? The really thick one.
Yeah.
That came out of meetings at Marucci in their bat lab in Louisiana, where they tried to find ways to counterbalance the bat differently, right? This has been going on in golf for a long time with custom fittings and custom clubs. And now you're trying to customize the bats to the individual. The bat companies have been on this for a long time. Obviously, the Yankees are getting a lot of credit for it, and their former front office guy who was a hitting coach in the organization is now the field coordinator for the Marlins, Aaron Lenhart, who is literally an astrophysicist, kind of helped to bring it to the forefront with him. But it's not like the Yankees are manufacturing these bats. I mean, this is like Louisville Slugger and Victus and Marucci and all these big companies are doing it. And you're going to see a lot of players, I think, at least trying them out to see whether or not they like it and if it gives them an advantage. I mean, there's a trade-off. Jeff Passan wrote a really good piece today on this, and that, the barrel's bigger and thicker, and you should hit the ball harder when you're in that spot. But off the end of the bat, you're probably going to end up with weaker contact than you would otherwise, right? So you have to still barrel it up. You still have to make good swing decisions. And I think it's pretty cool. And even from the college side, we've been wondering why the bets have seemed hotter the last couple of years, even though they're within the specifications for BB-Core. I think we got a pretty good answer this weekend.
Yeah,
torpedo bats for all.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it can kind of be leveled by other players just using them. So it's not like it's specific to your point. It's like the New York Yankees have the ability to create their own bats. I think there was that false narrative, the Yankees are creating their own bats. There's no team that creates their own bats. They're all produced by bats.
How it is, and I'm not trying to pick on Michael K here because you only have a few seconds to tell the story. But when you try and synthesize it down to the simplest play and you explain it, it makes it sound like the Yankees have done something that nobody else is doing. And then you have to do a little bit more digging, right? And so the problem is you hear that and you react and everybody's like, well, of course they're cheating for the Yankees, right? That's not what was happening here. It's something that's been going on for a while. I think it's actually pretty cool. And I think, hitters have been looking for ways to try and combat the unbelievable stuff that pitchers have right now. I just started watching Reds and Rangers, and Brady Singer's throwing 85-mile-an-hour sliders that move like 2 feet, like literally 2 feet. Like, how are you going to combat it? Well, better equipment and better training methods, using the trajectory that, most every team is using now that can simulate, what a pitcher's pitches are for hitters, down to the specifications of spin and carry and release angle and all of that, including, like an image of their delivery. Like, those are all ways that hitters can try and combat what has been a game that has tilted pretty heavily towards the pitchers and pitcher development over the last 15 years.
No doubt about it. Mike, we always appreciate the perspective and the time. We'll do it again as the season gets more underway, but thanks for hopping on and all the perspective, and hope you're doing well.
Yeah, guys, it's always good to catch up with you. Take care.
All right, Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio. We'll hear from Mike Shildt on the other side, his reaction to Jerks and Profar being suspended 80 games for PEDs. That's next, Jon and Jim. All right, Jon and Jim, Kevin Acee, his reaction at 5:30. Jurickson Profar of the Braves has been suspended for 80 games. He's ineligible for the postseason. He's been popped for steroids, and he will begin his suspension immediately. Let's hear from Mike Shildt.
Okay.
All right, so Shildt was in the dugout, and he was asked for his thoughts. You'll hear Marty Caswell and Mike. Do we hear Marty or not? All right, so Marty asked about his reaction to Jurickson Profar receiving an 80-game suspension for PD use.
I literally just found out before I got out here, and I love Jurickson Profar no more, no less right now than I loved him an hour ago. I still love him, and I don't know the circumstances behind it, but I know the person that is pro, and I love the guy.
Are you surprised by it? Considering everything that you do know about it, are you surprised by it?
I don't know what you want me to say. Yeah, I'm surprised by it. I mean, I think, I mean, all I can tell you is I don't know the circumstances, so I'm not going to speak to it. All I can tell you is I love Profar, and I'll support him regardless.
It's like when Tatis was suspended, I remember that show, and it was a lot of like the feeling of when you're disappointed in like your child. You still love them, but you're disappointed in them. You're not going to just throw them to the curb and just be like, go fend for yourself for the rest of your life. Like I'm still a fan of Jurickson Profar for what he did in a Padres uniform. I'll never forget that. And I think fans should never forget what Jurickson Profar did in a Padres uniform either. It's just, you're disappointed in him. You don't, like Mike Shildt said there, and I agree with him. You don't all of a sudden just stop like being a fan of Profar, what he did in a Padres uniform. You are. It happened. Like those things happened, and you just are incredibly disappointed by it.
Yeah, like I think it could impact some fans' opinions on Profar, which is because that's the thing. It's like everyone's going to have their 2 cents on it, and whether people want to agree with it or not, let's just tie it solely to Profar, because people don't like guilty by association. I completely understand that. That's fair and reasonable. But is any part of your mind wandering to 2024 with Profar? I mean, he specifically said in his statement, hey, I didn't do it last year. I was tested 8 times, and I tested negative all 8 times. And he says he didn't knowingly do it right now, but he's tested positive, and he'll take the penalty for what it is. I'm just saying, like, when you're disappointed in someone, you're going to have a reaction to that. And my initial reaction, I can't control how my body and my mind reacts to when I hear this news. Here's my reaction. I'm thinking about Profar's 2024. Fair or unfair? Profar opened that can of worms, not me. He opened that can of worms by testing positive.
And it's still, you have to sit and remember, Profar's not on this team anymore.
Correct.
Because it's so early in the season. We're not like
here, right?
Yeah, we're not like 60 games in,
right?
Where you've done a whole bunch here, and all of a sudden you see the Profar news, and you're like, wow, okay, we're 4 games into the season. Profar was just here. He's hanging out with Manny at SDFC game the other night. You got Jackson Merrill wearing a Profar t-shirt after opening day.
Right.
Profar is still very tight with a lot of people in that clubhouse. So that's why it feels weird right now, because you see the news and you almost think to yourself, it almost feels like this is a news that involves the Padres, but it doesn't. And you have to look at that and go, I'm thankful that it doesn't. And hindsight is now, thank goodness Preller didn't sign him, because if Preller signed him and the Padres brought back Jurickson Profar, oh my God.
Yeah, it would be a massive story, to your point, and maybe sometimes better to be lucky than good. Like maybe they did desire to bring him back, but maybe they didn't have the money. So they let him walk. And remember, Profar was briefly critical of the Padres ownership in his introductory press conference. Mm-hmm. And now 4 games into his Braves tenure, he's been popped. How about this Braves week? Ronaldo Lopez, by the way, has just been placed on the IL. We saw him pitch over the weekend. They lose Profar for 80 games. They're dealing with injuries everywhere. Acuna's not coming back for a while. They're 0-4. They're going to Dodger Stadium to play a 3-game series beginning tonight. Not that we're overly concerned. To your point, it's beneficial to the Padres if the Braves don't have a good year, because they might be fighting for the same playoff spot here in 2025. You cannot have a worse start to a year. As good as it's been for San Diego, and it's been great at 4-0, it's been equally as bad for Atlanta to start their year.
No wonder Brian Snitker wants to what's the word I'm looking for? Contemplating, not complicated.
Or
contemplating
retirement at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, he's like, maybe I should walk away from this.
We'll get to the wrap coming up. On the other side, we'll have Kevin Acee joining us as well in the 5 o'clock hour at 5:30. Kevin Egan is the host of MLS 360 and MLS Wrap Up. He will join us at 5 p.m. Plus, we have Bob Nelson. No, Willie. What is wrong with me? Me and you together, dude. Bob Nelson and Willie Dillon. That's what we should call him now.
Because we have the Bob Nelson.
We have Willie Nelson and Bob Dillon tickets to give away. We'll do that in the 4 o'clock hour. We continue to react to the news that Jerks and Profar has been suspended 80 games for testing positive for steroids. Kevin Acee at 5:30 will give away those Willie Nelson, Bob Dillon tickets in the 4 o'clock hour. Hour 3 of Jon and Jim. That comes your way next. Stay with us.
All right, this update is brought to you by Caltrans, cleancalifornia.com. The breaking news in baseball today, Jurickson Profar suspended for 80 games for PED use. Moving over to the Padres tonight. They take on the Guardians, starting a 3-game series at Petco Park. 6:40 first pitch. Kyle Hart makes his Padres debut. Jose Ramirez is in the Guardians lineup tonight against the Padres. San Diego FC, they'll take on the Seattle Sounders on Saturday at Snapdragon Stadium, coming off their huge win over LAFC over the weekend. And tonight we have Lakers basketball that you can hear right here on the station as they take on the Houston Rockets at 7 p.m. Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California, then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California, zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
Padres starting the season strong.
First pitch, driven deep and far to left off the bat of Nando. It'll ride out of here.
A sweep of the Braves with the Guardians coming to Petco tonight. SDFC early and often versus LAFC.
Redoff an approaching the agent, and the ball is but Magoon does it.
A 3-2 win has them tied for third in the West. Plus, the Final Four is set. Time for some positive reflection with Jon and Jim.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? This is hour 3, Jon and Jim. We'll have Kevin Acee at 5:30. We'll talk about SDFC with Kevin Egan, the host of MLS 360 and MLS Wrap-Up at 5 p.m. And we'll give away Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan tickets for May 15th coming up. Later this hour, we've been reacting to the news that Jurickson Profar of the Braves has been suspended 80 games after testing positive for steroids. We're also reacting to the positive momentum of the San Diego Padres, which they hope to continue here tonight in game 1 of the series against the Cleveland Guardians. Because when you do bring it back home, Padres are 4-0, and the Padres didn't have Jurickson Profar to start the year. They won't have him to finish this year. And this will be a huge story, I'm sure, in baseball and with Atlanta. But for the Padres, to your point from just a few moments ago, he's no longer with them, and they're 4-0, and they're trying to get to 5-0, and that's obviously their focus heading into the series against the Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, it's one of their best friends, but he's not with the club anymore.
Right.
So it only affects them, I feel like, off the field. In that clubhouse, it shouldn't affect them on the field because he's not with the team anymore. It's not like he signed this contract and he's their left fielder, and through the first 4 games he is playing amazing, and all of a sudden boom, pop for PEDs. Like, I mean, this team's going to move on. I think it helps the Padres because it hurts the Braves, a team that's in direct competition with you potentially for a playoff spot. So yeah, while it is a massive bummer to see that, dude, at the same time, I mean, it helps you as a club because your Profar's not here.
Yeah, again, a big baseball story that thankfully, whether it's luck or otherwise, the Padres didn't double down on Profar, and he's not with this team. And unfortunately, he's been popped 80 games for steroid use. So again, we'll continue to cover that story. Kevin Acee will join us at 5:30. And right now, let's get to this.
It's time for The Wrap, presented by Sombrero Mexican Food. Check out their website at sombreromex.com.
Are the new Torpedo bats good or bad for baseball?
Do we normally use this music?
No, what happened?
Is this the O drive thing?
Because the O drive, I had to audible.
Okay. What was the question? Torpedo bats?
Are they good or bad for baseball?
I think I don't care about them. I at first I was like, wait, this can't be legal, but it is. And so then my second thought is why isn't everybody using the torpedo bats? Manny last night on the broadcast even said, yo, I didn't know about these things. I need a couple torpedo bats
out here.
Yeah, we need some torpedo bats.
I think it's good. I think more players should use them if they're benefiting hitters. The game has been slanted towards pitching for a long time. Look at batting averages. So if this gives some type of edge back to the hitters, I think I'm a proponent of it. By the way, if all teams have access to them, no team is benefiting more than another, and all teams have access to them. So if it increases scoring and offense in baseball, I think that's a positive. So I'm a proponent. I'm a fan of torpedo bats. And they didn't work today for the Yankees, right? They had them today. They lost 11-1 to the Royals. So the bat isn't going to save everyone's season. No, it doesn't work like that.
But you are seeing more players now using torpedo bats that might not have used these bats like last year.
Other teams
like the Phillies today, they're playing the Rockies. Alec Boehm, he has a torpedo bat. So, yeah, it's interesting to see if it works. Now, the Brewers today gave up a bunch of runs to the Royals. Maybe the Brewers pitching is just that bad. But if the Yankees continue to do this all season long, there's something there, I think.
Right. Maybe the Brewers need like a torpedo ball for the pitching staff. Next question.
Yeah.
They need bigger fences. Is SDFC a playoff team?
Yes, they're a good club. They are a good club. I think there's enough to see so far through 5 matches to say, no, 6 matches, right?
6.
Yeah, 6 matches to say this is a good club. Absolutely. I think they are going to compete for a playoff spot. You could not have asked for a better start for this club, beating both LA clubs. They have 11 points on the season so far. They're second in the conference. And yeah, I think they're a playoff club.
Well, here's what I know. There's 15 teams in the conference, and I can definitively say that a couple of these teams are awful. All right, so Sporting KC has 1 point in 6 matches. They're out. Houston Dynamo has 2 points in 6 matches. They're out. So you're competing with there's 12 clubs or something that are going to, of the 12, 9 of them are going to make the postseason. And San Diego's gotten off to a good start. Again, far from a guarantee, and there's a lot of work to be done. But yeah, I think they'll contend for a playoff spot all season long, and hopefully they'll be in as an expansion team in year 1. Next question.
Who should be the favorite heading into the Final Four?
Who should be?
Yeah.
It's Duke. I mean, Duke has been the best team all year. Sorry, my phone is
talking.
Playing, I don't know what happened there. Duke, I think, is going to be favored here. I know Auburn was been the number 1 team majority of the season, but yeah, you can't. I think it should be Duke, followed by Florida, Houston, and Auburn. Do you agree with that?
Duke is just playing Houston.
That's just my wishful thinking.
No, I don't disagree. I would say Auburn is more likely than 4th among the Final 4 because Duke opens with Houston. I think it's a great game. Styles make fights. Duke's offense, Houston's defense. But are they really going to slow down Cooper Flagg in this offense? We'll see. Maybe they will. They've only lost once since they lost to San Diego State. I'm talking about Houston. I would say that I would rank it in this order: Duke, Florida, Auburn, Houston. Only because Houston opens with Duke in the Final 4, and I find it unlikely that Houston's going to make it to the national championship game. And also, I think Auburn and Florida are completely it's a coin flip. I know Florida's favored by 2.5 points. I see that as a coin flip in the SEC. I could absolutely see Auburn beating Florida or vice versa, but I think Duke should be considered the favorite heading into the Final 4.
I needed Florida to win.
Do you?
To win my bracket.
They very
Which
well
bracket?
could.
Every bracket.
All the brackets?
Not everyone, but I did 5. Yeah. 2 of them I have Florida, and those are the main ones. The other ones are kind of just my personal ones that mean absolutely nothing if I win.
I have North Carolina.
I don't think you're going to win, John.
You're right.
Because they're out.
The rest of my bracket was really good, other than North Carolina.
You, by the way, you were leading the entire time.
Yeah, I know.
Until the Elite 8 and the Final 4, or at least until the Final 4.
That's because North Carolina's out.
Correct, John.
Next question.
Has your opinion changed on Jerks and Profar?
I don't see how it couldn't a little bit. I still appreciate everything he did here, and a fan of Jerks and Profar while he was in a Padres uniform. But it's just hard to not think about it now. Man, a guy that had a career year last year, first time All-Star, and then he gets popped for PEDs the second that the following season starts after he gets paid. You're it's not a great look.
I mean, if I'm going to be honest, yeah, my opinion's changed. Now, my opinion could change again. My opinion's changed on Tatis when he got popped. Now, again, we've come full circle, and he was young, and lessons are learned, and hopefully, I don't know if benefiting from it is the right word, but he's learned from it and won't make the same mistake. But yeah, if I'm going to be completely honest, which is what I'm paid to be, then yeah, my opinion has changed. I'm not saying you can't embrace what he meant to the Padres or the guy hasn't had a good career. He has, but you can't tell stories in baseball for players that have tested positive for steroids and not mention that in the story. In this sport, it's part of the story. Now, Profar was never going to be a Hall of Famer, but this is going to be a part of it. I'm not saying he's going to be remembered solely for it, but we do know that for some of these players, Jim, you can have Hall of Fame type careers. And this is the only thing that matters. And this is the only reason why you're out of the Hall of Fame is because of one positive test. We've seen that over and over and over again. That's not going to be the case with Profar. He's nowhere near a Hall of Fame player. I'm just saying that to pretend like this isn't impactful on his legacy, I don't think it's accurate. I'm not saying it's his entire legacy. I don't think that's accurate either. But this will have some type of negative impact on Jurickson Profar's career and legacy. That's my opinion.
I agree. It's just a big bummer because you want last year to not have anything taint it.
Right.
You just don't.
And I'm not saying that this does taint anything from last year. Again, I made a correlation earlier. It was my immediate reaction. Like, does it impact how you feel about Profar's 2024 and his career year? I think it's a fair question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I'm not saying that he was using steroids in 2024, but he was just tested. He just tested positive.
Right. So it's hard not to put the 2 and 2 together, but I really don't want to do it. I just don't, because last year was so special. Last year was a year that Padres fans, until they won the World Series, will remember for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you had so many amazing moments. Like, they could have easily done a top 25 moments from 2024. That's how many they had.
Right.
It was incredible. 38 come from behind victories, all the walk-offs, all the game-tying home runs, all the big moments, the triple play at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know, the playoff games. Like, there were so many moments with last year's team. And you know who was in a lot of those big moments? It was Jurickson Profar.
Right.
As I've said hundreds of times this offseason, and why I thought that he was so important to bring back. And now you see, if they did bring him back, oh my God, the conversation today would be
completely different.
So different.
It would be completely different. And I do feel as if it's like completely fair reaction to be like the Braves said they're disappointed. I think Shildt said he was surprised. I mean, Shildt didn't want to talk about it, but it's his job. He's going to talk about it. People are going to ask, right? Nobody's going to want to talk about when they play the Dodgers the first time. Hey, can you get over the mental hurdle of losing to the Dodgers and blowing that 2-1 lead? Nobody wants to talk about it. But they're going to talk about it because that's the job and they're paid to talk about it. So Shildt was asked about it and he spoke on it, and the world's going to keep spinning. Or I don't even know how it works. Do we spin around? Whatever. Everything's going to keep spinning. But he didn't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. But how can you not talk about it? This is literally what we do. All we do is talk about these things. Yeah. So when something like this happens within the last 2 hours, how can you do anything other than talk about like the tentacles that go off of a Profar PED suspension? That's my point.
Yeah, it's hard to sit here and just not have your mind wander. Sorry guys, my mind wanders.
Yeah,
if your mind does not wander, you're lying. Okay? It just does. And so my mind wanders and I think of everything. I'm like, oh, okay, he works out with Tatis in the offseason, and oh man, Tatis was already suspended for PEDs once in his career. And I'm just like, then Profar has a career last year, and then he gets popped the beginning of this season. And you're like,
right,
oh my
it doesn't
gosh.
mean anything. It's just we're allowed to have thoughts.
Yeah, people are just I think just pretty sensitive, and it's just, I don't know.
I get the sensitivity. I mean, nobody wants to see anything get in the way of the Padres in 2025. We all agree. I don't want to see injuries. Nope. I don't want to see poor play.
Nothing.
I don't want to see suspensions, especially when you start like this. I mean, we started the show by saying like, oh man, there's nothing to complain about. Everything, they're 4-0.
And there's still nothing to complain about, by the way.
There isn't.
Yeah.
There absolutely isn't. You're right. But is it fair to, there's that PTSD that we've talked about before, that when it comes to sports and your favorite team, you're always thinking about the other shoe dropping.
Yeah. You're like, when is exactly the other shoe going to drop here? Because things are going way too good right now. Like, remember in the postseason last year, after game 1 against Atlanta, Michael King had the amazing start, 12 strikeouts. Game 2, Joe Musgrove shoving, and then his arm blows out. And you're like,
exactly.
Oh my gosh. Like, when's the other shoe going to drop here? Because it's so San Diego sports.
Right.
But, like, yeah, there is still nothing to be worried about with this Padres team. Well, there are things that you can worry about.
Sure.
But as far as, like, criticism goes or whatever, there's none of that today with this team. None of that. They have played flawless baseball, almost flawless baseball, through the first 4 games. They have gotten off to an amazing start, a start that we could only have dreamed of after their offseason. And now they're looking to go 5-0 for the first time in franchise history. There's no suspensions. There's no injuries yet. None of that, right? It's a player on another team, but it hits home because that player on the other team was not only just here in San Diego, but he was on the Padres last year, and he was such a huge piece of that team.
I want to switch gears on the other side because we touched on it earlier, but then we got this breaking news. Magoon Guth entered the transfer portal. Does that mean he's gone, or is there a chance that Guth returns to San Diego State this upcoming season? We've got the latest on the other side. Kevin Acee at 5:30. We'll talk SDFC with Kevin Egan at 5 p.m. It's Jon and Jim. All right, Jon and Jim, Kevin Acee at 5:30. The latest on SDFC. Big win this past weekend. Their first ever home win over LAFC. Kevin Egan, host of MLS 360, MLS Wrap-Up, will join us coming up at 5 p.m. By the way, this hour, your chance to win Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan tickets, May 15th, North Island Chula Vista Amphitheater. So we'll get back to Profar. There's been a lot of reaction to it here today. Imagine my surprise last night. I think it was before the wrap-up show, where I start getting tagged in this tweet regarding Magoon Guth. So there's this person that covers like recruiting, high school and college recruiting, Sam Kaiser, who tweets this out last night. San Diego State transfer Magoon Guth told the league he had a Zoom meeting with Kentucky today. Guth plans to have a Zoom call with Michigan tomorrow. So this was yesterday. And tells me he's also still considering a return to San Diego State, one of the more intriguing portal prospects. And he goes on to say stats from last year. So again, according to Sam Kaiser, who covers high school and college recruiting and the portal, he says that Guth has had a Zoom call with Kentucky. He was expected to have a Zoom call with Michigan today. He's also still considering a return to San Diego State. So I guess I would ask it this way. Aztec fans were already bummed out when they learned that Guth was in the portal. Are they going to be more bummed out now that there's this glimmer of hope that maybe Guth could return? According to Sam Kaiser, we don't know if it's fully accurate or not, but he says he spoke with them. Are they going to be more bummed out now if he ultimately chooses Kentucky or Michigan after we get this glimmer, maybe the door slightly open because there's a chance, according to this report, that he could come back to San Diego State?
It's one of those like, please don't give me hope. You know, I immediately go to, and Brent would understand the reference, Avengers Endgame, Hawkeye. Remember this?
So yeah, of course I remember.
Of course, when Natasha found him
in the room
in, I think, Japan.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they're like, we think we found a way to bring everybody back, and he turns around and he goes, "Don't give me hope."
It's exactly what it's like.
exactly what it's like. Yeah, it's you see that right there, and you see a little nugget, and you're like, please don't give me hope, because now it's going to feel like you almost lost him twice. Like he leaves one time, goes to the transfer portal. There's news of he may return, and then if he goes to Kentucky, you're like, great. Did you just use us for leverage or what?
So is that where your mind went? Did you think, hey, I could use this as leverage? Like Kentucky or Michigan, if you don't pony up further, I can always go back. We had Brian Dutcher on the show last week, and you asked specifically, would you consider having a player back that entered the portal? He said over a shorter period of time, I would consider it. I wouldn't want it to drag out for a long period of time. I'm paraphrasing, right? Mm-hmm. This has been maybe a week. It hasn't been a month yet. Maybe we get some resolution on Magoon in the days ahead. But, you know, Dutch said he would consider taking a player back that enters the portal. Like, as in, do you think that this is a leverage play, or is there some truth in here that Magoon is contemplating a return to San Diego State?
Did Mesa get like a Godfather deal from somebody in town? Because I still think money is the number one factor for Magoon's decision. And as it is with almost everybody in college athletics nowadays. Mm-hmm. So unless San Diego State's got a bunch of money lying around somewhere that we don't know about that they can give Magoon, that's not happening. They're not going to beat out Michigan or Kentucky for Magoon, or really any power school like a Texas Tech or a Baylor, or
financially speaking.
Financially, yeah.
So do you think that is there a spot that they could potentially get to where he would take less to stay? These Dutch just said, hey, I got players on my roster right now that are taking less to be here. They trust the coaching, the development. They love San Diego State. They love San Diego. They're getting a quality education. There's a reason why they're sticking around, even though they could get more elsewhere. As in, yeah, you're not going to get, you're right. Are they going to give him $1.5 million next year? It seems extremely unlikely, if not impossible.
It'd be cool if they did.
But if they got him, you know, more than they've ever given any other player, would he consider a return? I don't know the answer to it. I'm just reacting to the report. And when I saw the report, I thought to myself, that's interesting that he's still considering a return to San Diego State. And then I thought, why would he say that? Is it for leverage? Is it because he's being 100% truthful and honest and he would potentially return if the dollar figure was right? Because he's comfortable at SDSU? We've now seen within the last year in football and basketball, players have entered the portal and returned. We didn't see it the first year or two. We've now seen it over the last year. Maybe they're using it for leverage against their current school. Say, oh, you're going to offer me X? Enter the portal. School goes back to them and says, you know what, we'll give you Y. I'll be back for Y. That's more than X.
If Magoon returns to San Diego State,
we're going commercial free.
You can go commercial free.
What does that mean?
I don't know. That just, I mean, hats off to Dutch and this group. Yeah, Mesa will have to play a huge role in that, but I just when I see a guy at San Diego State enter the transfer portal, I immediately think there's no way they're coming back. Like none. Especially a guy of Magoon's stature, because he's going to get I think a sizable deal.
I agree with you.
NIL
I
money.
think Dutch was the one quoted by Mark that said, he probably gets 1.5, 1.7.
Donovan Dent, Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, just got close to $3 million or over $3 million from UCLA reportedly. $3 million from UCLA. Like what? That's ridiculous.
Right.
Now, Donovan Dent's a better player than Magoon Guth, but Magoon Guth has a higher upside for sure. So I'm not going to put too much stock into this because I don't want to get my hopes up. And I think Aztecs fans should do the same, because if he does, and when he does eventually leave, then you're going to be even more upset than you already were when you first initially saw him announce that he's entered the transfer portal.
I know that's kind of how I feel, because I feel like the door is open to some extent, but I also feel like you've got Lucy with the football, and every single time Charlie Brown gets close, she pulls it away.
Yep.
And he falls for it. Now, again, to your point, you just don't know. I mean, San Diego State has won at such a high level. They've always figured this out. They might have to do it without Guth and Boyd, obviously, based on them being in the portal. But yeah, I don't think you should hold out all hope. But then again, should you completely disregard it? You're in this weird spot because of the portal as a fan, not just San Diego State, just in general. You're in these weird positions now where you're like, what do I do? Do I just wait for the portal to close? Do I wait for the roster to be finalized? It's just tough. It's just a new world, obviously, that everyone is dealing with. All right, later this hour, your chance to win Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan tickets. They're playing here May 15th in San Diego. We'll tell you how to win. Later this hour, we'll get back to the news of the day in baseball. Jerks and Profar has been suspended 80 games for testing positive for PEDs. Plus, the Padres are 4-0. They're opening a series tonight against the Cleveland Guardians. And Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, joins us at 5:30 on Jon and Jim. All right, so what could you do with an extra $75,000 right now, or even a couple $100,000? If you own a home, you can get that money in less than a week with Loan Pronto. Hey guys, it is Schaefer. Loan Pronto is the leader in quickly converting your home equity into cold hard cash so you can pay off all your credit cards or start that home remodel. Loan Pronto has several easy options to let you access the cash from your home. There's virtually no paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, often no appraisal. Listen, the average homeowner now has over $300,000 in equity. That's your money. Use it. One client got $150,000 out, paid off all their credit cards, 2 car loans, and a personal loan, cutting their monthly expenses by $1,500. You can get approved in as little as 1 day. Act now with no hard credit pull up front. LoanPronto.com or 619-207-4336. Get the money you need for anything. 619-207-4336 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
All right, this update is brought to you by Caltrans, cleancalifornia.com. The news of the day in baseball, Jurickson Profar suspended 80 games for PED use. He will miss the postseason as well. He'll actually not be eligible for the postseason if the Braves do make it there. Moving over to the Padres, they start a 3-game series tonight with the Cleveland Guardians. 6:40 first pitch. Kyle Hart makes his debut for the Padres tonight. Jose Ramirez is back in the Cleveland lineup for the Guardians. SDFC picked up 3 points with a huge win over LAFC this past Saturday night at Snapdragon Stadium. Next up, they'll take on Seattle Sounders on Saturday night at Snapdragon. 7:30 kick. 7 p.m. is when our pregame coverage starts. And we have Lakers basketball tonight that you can hear right on the station against the Houston Rockets, 7 p.m. tip time. Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California, then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California, zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
All right, Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. We've got Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan tickets that we will give away later this hour. Kevin Egan is the host of MLS 360 and MLS Wrap-Up. Will join us at 5. Kevin Acee's reaction to Jurickson Profar getting an 80-game suspension, testing positive for PEDs. He will join us coming up at 5:30. There's been a ton of reaction to this Profar story. See it on the text line, 70470, start it with team. You can call us if you want to react, 877-767-4760. We see it in our whatever live chat on YouTube. You can search for Jon and Jim 760 to find us on YouTube. I think sometimes people fail to understand what we are paid to do. Okay,
I think
without discussing anyone specifically, this comes up every 3 months at least, if not more often, on the show. When people say, "You're journalists. Why don't you act like one?" Full stop. No, not. We don't report the news. That's not our job. We've never once been asked to do it. That has nothing to do with what we do. We react to the news. Do we sometimes know news that other people don't know? Yeah, we do. Do we sometimes make inferences or references to it? Probably. Have we broken some stories here over the years? I'm sure we have over the last 3 or 4 years. We don't report Jurickson Profar was popped. We offer our opinions on what that means. That's our job. We're not journalists. We're sports talk hosts. So again, I don't think everyone understands that concept for whatever reason, and that's fine. I'm not asking you to understand our jobs, but we're here to offer opinions. You might disagree with them. That's fine. I disagree with Jim sometimes. He disagrees with me. So on and so forth with Brent. Or sometimes we agree. But to think that we owe Profar accurate reporting. By the way, we've been completely accurate on the story. That we owe the reporters reporting on Profar something. We don't owe anyone anything. All we owe is to our listeners to do the best job we can with the show, which is what we do each and every day.
Yeah, and it's just a couple trolls in the chat right now that are thinking that they know more than we do, and they're trying to make this something that it's really not. But it is what it is, and you know what? I have an opinion, and guess what? My opinion is what I'm paid to give on the radio. So I'm going to give that opinion. And if my mind wanders to Fernando Tatis Jr., my mind wanders to Fernando Tatis Jr. Not saying he's going to be popped for PEDs here, but I put 2 and 2 together, and my mind goes there. Is that a good, does that suck that it does? Yeah, it does. But that's Tatis's fault. He got popped for PEDs in his career. I can give my opinion. If you don't like it, flip off the radio or stop watching us on YouTube. I mean, you have a choice, just like I have a choice, and Jon has a choice. And I've seen people in this industry get fired for awful things that they have said. And to insinuate that either myself or Jon are saying things that are derogatory or whatever, you are so far to line, my guy, so far to line.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, it's also that's not even the point. It's just our opinions. But like this belief that we are, owed our listeners, we need to provide accurate reporting. That's not our job. Like,
no, it's not.
It's Kevin's job. Like, Kevin can report on the Padres seeking a right-handed starting pitcher, hypothetically speaking, at the trade deadline, or they're seeking a bench piece. He may be factually correct. He may not be. It might pan out. It may not. When you look at social media, everyone's trying to get things first. They want to get it right too. But like Ken Rosenthal, when he tweets out like, "Hey, the Padres are about to land Max Scherzer," and then they don't. That's not our job. We weren't trying to beat Ken Rosenthal to that story. We're going to react to that story when Ken Rosenthal gets that right or wrong. That's a huge story. Or Max Scherzer coming to San Diego or not. That's a huge story. So I don't know. It's a long way of saying these are hot button topics. When a player gets popped for steroids today, and the most notable players this decade, like there's not a long list. It's not happening every day. 1 or 2 or 3 major leaguers a year have been popped over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So unfortunately, it happened to Profar again. He's not on the Padres. We're not tying it directly to the Padres, but unfortunately, same thing happened with Tatis in 2021, and it's just part of the story.
Yeah, like I made a joke on Twitter, and people are like losing their minds over it. But
I don't think they're losing their minds over it. I read the reaction.
There's a good amount. I mean, it is what it is. But again, it is Twitter. It's stupid. It's like 10 people, and it's not everybody. So whatever.
I said Shohei Ohtani sucked.
Yeah, there's one troll in our chat that like demanding I apologize. Apologize for what? Nothing to apologize for.
Did you ban or just time him out?
I put him in timeout. I was sick of it. I know he's a loyal listener, but like, give me a break. We're moving on. Anyway.
We are.
Hi, John.
Well, I'm curious. I want to know what Kevin has to say about it. He's covered the Padres this decade. He's seen how this story unfolds. Again, I remember when they signed Cano. Part of the story was, Cano's been popped multiple times, hasn't he? And that was after Tatis was popped. And now Profar, 4 games into his Braves tenure, is popped. Again, I'm not tying that to the Padres at all. I'm just saying when something like that happens, your mind goes to when it happened previously. I'll give you an example. If the Padres take a 2-1 lead against the Dodgers in the NLDS, guess what I'm going to bring up? If the Padres in 2025 have a 2-1 lead in the NLDS, guess what we'll talk about for Game 4?
Can they not go 24 straight scoreless innings?
Yeah. Can they do something now that they didn't do last year? Again, you can't tie the two together. I'm not saying the 2025 Padres are better or worse off in that situation than the 2024 Padres, but it just played out right in front of our eyes. So how could you not talk about that a year later if they put themselves right back in that position?
And this Padres team, depending on how things go, I mean, it almost feels like, we're just waiting for them to get to the division series up 2-1 in the series. You just get like that's where we're trying to get
Season
to.
starts.
Season starts right there.
I would say just get back there, but start the series there.
But it's hard to do that because they lost pieces and they don't have the depth like they did last year. But they could absolutely turn into that type of team where we're just looking for them to get back to the division series up 2-1.
Sure.
And now this is when the season starts. Can they get over that hump? They're way too early to even talk like that. Way too early. But they have gotten out to, an amazing start. And I think that they have a confidence level about them that, hey, you guys doubted us in the offseason? Okay. Well, we're going to go out there and we're going to prove we're just as good as we were last year, and hopefully we can be better.
There's no question that internally they fancy themselves as a playoff team at a bare minimum. I mean, there's no part of them, whether it's Preller, John Seidler. We haven't played John Seidler today, by the way.
That's another story.
John Seidler, the clubhouse, the manager. I mean, they all envision themselves in the postseason, rightfully so. They were there last year. They've brought a lot of these pieces back. They've gotten off to a good start. We know it'll play out over the next 6 months. I mean, there's going to be twists and turns, obviously, within the season. But I envision them as a playoff contender as well. Who wouldn't envision them as a playoff contender, regardless of how this 4-game series against Atlanta played out? So, yeah, they're absolutely going to be a contender for the postseason. I would say that even if the season hasn't started, or even if they were 2-2 right now, of course, they're a playoff contender. And I think they should be treated like one, regardless of what the record is right now, based on the team they brought with them to San Diego, the dollars accounted for, the $200 million payroll, the 45,000 people there each and every night. You better darn put yourself in a position to make the postseason. That should be the expectation for the franchise right now.
And it is. Yeah, it is. That is the expectation. They believe they're a good baseball club. They believe they have the right pieces. I'm still worried about guys like Jason Hayward and their catchers and their bench, right? Like, can their pitching hold up? Those are questions that you have with most every team, really. Not every team. No team is perfect. Dodgers is probably the closest, but no team is perfect. So you're going to have questions about everything. But, with Jackson Merrill and Tatis resurgence at the leadoff spot, and Manny's going to put up his numbers, that. And the top 3 in their rotation, Michael King and Dylan Cease are going to have good starts. They're going to have good outings. They're not going to look like they did their first 2 starts for the entire year. And then Nick Pivetta put that guy in the fold. And then when they get Yu Darvish back, hopefully healthy again.
Yeah.
This team's a good team. They just like every team, they got to stay healthy. They have to have timely hitting. They have to have the others step up. They need a couple guys to have like really good borderline career years. Pitching needs to stay healthy. It's the same old with every team. But if they do, on paper, they are absolutely a team that can compete and absolutely a playoff team in my mind.
Right. It's like they're a good team. The question is that'll play out in front of us over the next 6 months is how good. All right. Coming up at 5 p.m., Kevin Egan, host of MLS 360, MLS Wrap-Up, will join us at 5 with more on SDFC's big win over LAFC this past weekend. Kevin Acee at 5:30. But call right now if you want 2 free tickets to see Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan at the Chula Vista Amphitheater, the North Island Chula Vista Amphitheater, May 15th. Call right now because the first 2 callers will be contestants for trivia. We call Trainwreck Radio. The number to call is 877-767-4760. Again, the number to call, 877-767-4760. We have 2 free tickets to see Willie Nelson with Bob Dylan. Amazing, amazing act. May 15th right here in San Diego. Call right now if you want to win those 2 free tickets. 877-767-4760. Call now. That's next. All right, Jon and Jim. Kevin Acee will join us coming up at 5:30. Our Padres insider, Kevin Egan, host of MLS 360, MLS Wrap-Up, will join us coming up at 5 p.m. We're going to give away these Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan tickets shortly. Eventful day, I would say. Back to baseball, though, tonight. The Padres will try to get to 5-0. They'll give away Jackson Merrill's bobblehead. Not actually Merrill himself, but they'll give away a bobblehead.
No.
Sellout tonight?
Absolutely sellout
with
tonight.
The bobblehead?
Now, did they count Saturday as a sellout?
I think anything over 40 for them, they announced as a sellout.
So that was a sellout.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think every seat was sold because we were there.
No.
But it was a good crowd.
Because have they had 4 straight sellouts to start the year?
I think technically they've announced 40K all 4 games. Yeah.
Okay. So there will be another sellout tonight. They're going to sell out their opening homestand, right?
I'm at Padres.com, which is their website, Jim.
Oh, really?
And yeah, there's like no tickets available, maybe like 200. So they're sold out. Yeah. I mean, are they going to sell out their opening homestand? Is Wednesday a day game? They can't be sold out Wednesday, are they? It's hard to sell out. There's a million. Look at Wednesday. Million tickets available.
So the 5 star.
Yeah, the 1 o'clock Wednesday
start,
game is hard to sell out. But yeah, I think they're going to sell out maybe 6 of their first 7 games. They'll be on pace to draw over 3 million fans again. It's been a great start. I mean, just from a fan perspective, from a team perspective, 4-0, Jackson Merrill bobblehead. What more could you want?
I would like 5-0.
5-0. I want 5-0.
And then I would like 6-0. And then I would like 7-0. And then 8-0. And then 9-0.
Do you want to run through their 162 game schedule?
Funny you asked, John. Yes, I would.
Let's get to that.
I'm not.
But we'll do it at 6 p.m. Right now, let's get to this.
6:01.
All right, 3 questions, 2 contestants, 1 lifeline. Today's 2 contestants, we have Marcos and Art. Marcos, you called in first, so you have your choice of Jon or Jim. Who do you want to go with?
I'm going to go with Jim.
All right, perfect. John, you know who that was?
That was Marcos.
Yeah, Marcos.
Is it Marcos or Marcus?
Marcos.
Marcos. All right, Marcos, you get Jim. That means Art, you get John, all right?
All right.
Perfect. Brent, what is the question today?
All right, guys, the men's Final Four is all set for Saturday. Did you guys know that there are 7 programs with 10 or more all-time appearances in the men's Final Four? Today's question, name any of those 7 programs with at least 10 or more Final Four appearances.
All right. Art, you are up first. What is your first guess? You do have a lifeline if you want to use it.
Final Four. Villanova?
Villanova 10?
Nope. Marcos, you're up. What's your first guess? You do have a lifeline if you want to use it.
Let's go with UCLA.
UCLA. Good one. Yeah. Art, you're up next. What is your second guess? You do have a lifeline, which is John, if you want to use it.
All right. I'm going to go with UConn.
UConn. Dude, did you start watching basketball like 99? Because you've got like the best teams of the last like 20 years.
Marcos, you could win this right here with the correct answer. You do have a lifeline if you want to walk this off right now. What are you going to do, Marcos?
Give me like Providence.
I don't think I need the lifeline. I'm just going to go ahead and say Duke right now.
Duke with the win.
Yeah, wow.
Art, what was your next guess?
I'm very disappointed in you,
Miami?
Miami of Ohio?
Come on, man. There's so many out there. Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, UCLA.
Just any blue blood.
Who else are we missing?
Michigan State?
Michigan State. Are they on there?
Yeah.
How about Ohio State?
Yeah, that's all of them.
Boom.
There you go.
Is Villanova even on the list? They can't have more than 4, 5, 6. And I think
they have 6.
I think UConn, every time they've been to a Final Four, they've won a national championship, is my guess.
Nova's got 6. UConn's got 7.
Okay. All right. Well, that was quick. That was easy. Congratulations, because you've got a pair of tickets to the Outlaw Music Festival featuring Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan, North Island Chula Vista Amphitheater. This is May 15th. For tickets and info, visit Ticketmaster.com. Again, tickets and info at Ticketmaster.com. We've barely touched on this, Jim. This Final Four, there's been a lot of outrage Cinderella's dead.
Why?
How could it be 4-1 seeds? I can't believe this. Like, well, these were the best teams. That's how they got the 1 seed. These were the teams favored to make it this far. And now you've got some big time matchups, right? Duke and Houston, Florida, and the other team they're playing,
Auburn.
I mean, these are good matchups. I'm not saying I don't enjoy Cinderella. I do. But when you get to a Final Four and you've got arguably the 4 best teams, it's hard to complain about that.
Yeah, I will enjoy it either way. If it was like in 2022 when you had a 5, a 9, a 5, and a what else? What was UConn?
22 or 23?
Sorry, 23.
Yeah, I think UConn might have been a 5 that year too.
Well, who did they play? They played Miami, right?
Yeah, and what was Miami?
Miami was they weren't a,
well, FAU was in an 8-9.
Or the 9 seed.
San Diego State was a 5.
Yep.
Do I need to look this up? I will.
What is it?
I'm looking it up. Let's see. Miami was a 5.
Okay.
UConn was a 4.
Oh, okay. There you
San Diego State was a 5. FAU was a 9. You add that up, it was 23 in seeding.
Mm-hmm.
This year it's 4, right?
Yeah,
1
right.
plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.
Yeah. This is what people forget to understand. Like, this is the whole point of March Madness. Infinite possibilities.
Yep.
And if it happens to be all number 1 seeds, it's all number 1 seeds. If it happens to be all number 2s, it's all number 2s. You know, if all number 5s, it's all number 5s. Right? Everybody just wants those Cinderella upsets. And sometimes it's just not going to happen because you know what it is? It's called sports. Sports is unscripted. Anything can happen. It's the best series on television because no one knows how these things are going to play out. It's not predetermined. They are the best teams. Kind of the like whole point is if you are the number 1 seed, you're supposed to make it to the Final Four, right?
Yeah, like we don't see people saying, "Oh man, Chiefs 1 seed," you know, Lions 1 seed. NBA, how often do we see these highly seeded teams? You know, Denver Nuggets 1 or Golden State in their run, a 1 seed, or the Lakers before a 1 seed. They oftentimes make the finals. I have seen 1 seeds in the NHL, NFL, NBA routinely win championships. Shoot, sometimes the best team in baseball win it all. Not always, but sometimes. So I'm with you on that. There's going to be variables. There's some years where you've got an 85-win baseball team that could win a World Series. There's other years the team with 107 wins is going to win the World Series.
Who just played Florida, by the way? Texas Tech?
Yeah, they had that great come from behind win
against Arkansas.
And then they blew a 9-point lead with 3 minutes to play 2 days later.
So that's the point is like, if everyone's like, oh man, these number 1s are unbeatable. Florida was literally about to lose to Texas Tech.
Down 9, 3 minutes to play.
Now Duke, they might be unbeatable. Auburn, I mean, it was pretty much a 10-point game the entire way against Michigan State.
Right.
And then Houston, look at Houston's game. They went on a not a buzzer beater, but it was they beat
Houston Purdue was a very good game.
They won by 2.
Yeah. They needed a shot with 1 second left. You're right. That inbound play.
Yeah. So if everybody's thinking that these number 1 seeds are just like steamrolling to the tournament, winning every game by 20 points, it's not happening.
And if they are, that's because they're the best teams in basketball.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why they've been able to get there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You can hear the Final Four right here on San Diego Sports 760 this Saturday. Then the national championship game. We'll have coverage beginning at 4 p.m. a week from today. All right. On the other side, there's a lot to react to. Kevin Acee at 5:30 will join the show. His thoughts on the 4-0 start on the Jerks and Profar 80-game suspension for testing positive for steroids with Atlanta. And on the other side, Kevin Egan, host of MLS 360, MLS Wrap-Up. San Diego FC picks up a win over LAFC this past weekend at Snapdragon Stadium. Kevin Egan will react with us on the other side. We're here until 6. It's Jon and Jim.
All right, this update is brought to you by Caltrans, cleancalifornia.com. The breaking news in baseball today, Jurickson Profar has been suspended 80 games for PED usage. Padres and Guardians start a 3-game series tonight at Petco Park, 6:40 first pitch. Kyle Hart makes his Padres debut. Jose Ramirez is back in the lineup today for the Guardians. SDFC picked up 3 huge points over LAFC this past Saturday night as they won their first home match in club history, 3-2. Next up, they'll take on Seattle Sounders Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff. 7 p.m. is when our pregame coverage starts right here on San Diego Sports 760. And we have Lakers basketball tonight. You can hear right on the station as they take on the Houston Rockets at 7 p.m. Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California. Then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. 0 litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
It's Jon and Jim to warm up that drive home.
Is there any hangover effect from the way the 2024 ended? The answer is unequivocally no. If you remember, 43-19, Jim, was great. The Dodgers series wasn't great, but it's been 5 months and you see no impact based on how they played. The pitching's been ridiculous the last 2 days. Everything's been great.
Everything's awesome.
Everything's great.
Everything is awesome.
Until they're down like 1-0 tonight in the second inning.
The start of the season, they could not have asked for a better start.
Now, time for Jon and Jim.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? Final hour of Jon and Jim in 30 minutes. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, full reaction to the Padres 4-0 start, plus his thoughts on Jurickson Profar being handed an 80-game suspension today by Major League Baseball after testing positive for steroids. But also this weekend, another win for San Diego FC. A great start for the expansion franchise. It's our pleasure right now to catch up with Kevin Egan, MLS Season Pass, the host of MLS 360 and the MLS Wrap-Up Show. With us right now, Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. So, Kevin, we appreciate you hopping on. I guess I want to start with a 30,000-foot view. The impact of San Diego in this league, or what it's meant for Major League Soccer to add San Diego. It seems like 6 matches into this franchise, it's just been a complete home run. We're seeing these sold-out crowds. The team has played well, and it seems like it's worked out perfectly for the league in San Diego so far. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Jon and Jim, great to be joining you fellas, and thanks for the time. I think it has been a home run in so many ways. The football on the pitch, the fans bringing it at Snapdragon, and also, here's a wrinkle that I think we're all noticing from afar, is San Diego dominating Los Angeles to kickstart the year, like to beat LA Galaxy on opening day, the champions in their backyard, and then to welcome LAFC, the blockbuster franchise worth, so much money with celebrity owners like Will Ferrell and the big names that they have, to go out and beat them at the weekend in the manner that they did, going 3-0 up and the stadium rocking and the fans just loving. I just felt it was one of those moments. You take a step back and you think, San Diego have brought it this year, and everybody from afar is just applauding it.
We're 6 matches in here, but I feel like that's enough to deem this San Diego football club as, one of the better teams in MLS, at least in the Western Conference. Do you agree with that, or do you think you still need to see more from them to prove that they are a good team and that they can compete for a playoff spot?
I'm going to be a little bit cautious on jumping at that right away, and the reason I say that is this could still very much be a honeymoon period. Mm-hmm. You come into the league and there's a great buzz about the place, but a couple of losses and all of a sudden we'll test that character very quickly. San Diego have some really tough games coming up. The weekend they play Seattle at home. Seattle are one of the more hardened veteran teams in the league that will make it really difficult for San Diego to play the way they want to play. And then Mikey Varas' side have to go to Charlotte and Colorado in their next 2 games. 2 really tough places to go. We saw Colorado victorious over Charlotte at the weekend, and the team with the best home form over the last few years has been Charlotte at the Bank of America Stadium. Really tough place to go. So I think if you ask me that question in 3 more games, we'll have a greater sample size. But for now, mighty impressed with what's going on.
Can you put it in a bit of perspective for us? Kevin Egan is with us, and obviously there's been so many expansion franchises over the years. So is it reasonable, though, for an expansion franchise to, I don't know if expect is the right word, but to get to the postseason? I mean, that's not something that would be entirely unique, right? Because as this league has expanded, we've seen some of its expansion franchises have very good years in year one, right?
Let me put it this way. We aggregated all our analysts' predictions for the year on where teams would finish this season. Pretty much everybody had San Diego finishing 15th out of 15.
Wow.
Rock bottom of the West. And that's because Mikey Varas comes in with limited head coach experience, all things considered. You're asking a lot of a designated player like an Anders Dreyer, whom a lot of people, didn't really know an awful lot about, coming over from Anderlecht in Belgium. Every part of it has been a hit. Ingvarsson, when he comes back, will be a great striker, I think, for this team. Tverskov in midfield has been an under-the-radar signing that I think has blown people away, just with his leadership, the captain midfield, flanked either side by De La Torre and Godoy. It's just worked. The pieces to the puzzle have been put together beautifully, and I think you're starting to see a team that, by the way, San Diego have had the most possession in the league this year too, which I think is interesting for an expansion team to come in and dominate the ball like they have in games. It just shows that they're all swimming in the same direction and they understand exactly what Mikey Varas wants from them, which you often don't see from expansion teams. We've seen St. Louis come into the league a couple of years ago and they hit a home run. They actually finished best in the West. They finished first in the West in 2023. And we've had other teams like Atlanta United in 2017 were absolutely blockbuster at Mercedes-Benz Stadium when they came in. But more often than not, teams lay an egg in year one, and that's not the case right now with San Diego.
So Chucky Lozano returned to action, only played about 15 to 20 minutes in this match back here after his injury against the LAFC. When you're coming off an injury like Chucky did, is it how important is it to just like ease your way into things? Because he is such a huge part of this club. I mean, he was the big first acquisition that this club made. And he's very important to what they're going to be doing here, what they're trying to do. But going forward, just, integrating himself into the matches and what kind of how does that work? And how does Mikey Varas make that happen?
Given everything we've seen from this team, I'm not sure Mikey Varas is in a huge rush to get Chucky in. And as ridiculous as that is to say, because he's that big time name and star for Mexico, who's had a great career over in Europe as well as the national team. But Maiten played really, really well on the left-hand side the other night. Dreyer has been sensational. Like, honestly, I think Dreyer, if you were to have an MVP for the league conversation right now, Anders Dreyer might win it. I think it's Anders Dreyer, maybe Luis Suarez at Miami, one or two other guys, Ty Baribo at Philadelphia. But Dreyer's been that good. It's just, I don't know if Chucky's absence has been overly missed like we thought it would be. And maybe that speaks to the first game and what we saw from Chucky, the little bit in the second game as well, his cameo at the weekend. I think we want to see more from him. Like the way that Dreyer has stepped up and been able to create but also score goals. Chucky has to be that guy, and especially knowing what Carlos Vela did in Los Angeles, many people expect Chucky Lozano to be able to deliver in a similar way to Carlos Vela.
So you mentioned the fact that next up for San Diego FC, the Seattle Sounders, they have just one win in their first 6 matches. Is that a surprise to you?
Yeah, big time. Big time. I think they were tipped by an awful lot of people to win the Supporter Shield this season, certainly challenge into Miami for that. One win is not good enough at all, but I think we've come nearly to expect this from Seattle. In recent years, this team under Brian Schmetzer starts slow. It's hard to understand with this group, but they did bring in an awful lot of change in the offseason with personnel. They have a lot of injuries. De La Vega's injured, Paul Arriola's injured, Jordan Morris is injured. These are big attacking pieces for them, but you're still expecting much, much more. Jesus Ferreira, a U.S. international, will lead the line for them, yet to score this season and yet to really perform at a level that we'd expect from him. And I just think, though, in a game like this is the concern for San Diego, that Brian Schmetzer's been at the helm there since 2016. He's an MLS champion with this group. He's a guy that makes the playoffs every year. They know how to manage games like this. They'll be happy enough without the ball in a lot of cases, and they'll be happy to try and hit San Diego on the counterattack. And I just think it's a really tricky game that you're coming up against an experienced beast in Seattle that understand how to manage the occasion and the emotion of the crowd as well.
Luca De La Torre, hometown kid here. He had a goal against Austin 2 matches ago. How does he get more involved in scoring and assisting with this club, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one with him. You're right, because De La Torre's got that creative spark that I don't think you have from the other 2 midfielders, especially Anibal Godoy, alongside the captain. So if Godoy and Tverskov sit, that's giving De La Torre maybe that little bit of license to go forward. He's silky smooth, and he's a good creator in tight spaces. So I'd love to see him push on a little bit. I'd love to see him get more touches in around the box. and try and be that goal threat. Like we did see him score at Austin via a deflection, but I think he can definitely be a bigger threat going forward than we've seen so far. And a hometown boy. I thought it was interesting at the weekend that LAFC's coach is from San Diego, Steve Cherundolo. So it was a bitter pill for him with family and friends in attendance at San Diego winning that game.
No doubt about it. Kevin Egan is with us right now, the host of MLS 360, MLS Wrap Up, Apple TV. Of course, we've been talking with guests from Apple TV and MLS Season Pass throughout the start of the season for San Diego FC. Kevin, around the league, is there a surprise? Maybe it's San Diego off to their start, 6 matches in with 11 points, but beyond San Diego, what has stuck out when you look at the league as a whole?
Guys, this is the thing about Major League Soccer. You try and predict it, and it'll make an absolute fool of you. I mean, seriously. San Diego making a fool of folks. Vancouver making a fool of folks. Vancouver sitting at the summit of the Western Conference is somebody nobody predicted. In fact, all of our genius analysts at MLS Season Pass at San Diego at 15 and Vancouver at 14.
Of course.
Here they are now at 1 and 2 in the West. So we joke about it in there thinking like it's just such a difficult league to predict. But Vancouver, what they're doing under a brand new head coach, I think it's somewhat similar to say what Liverpool have done under Arne Slot. A coach that takes over from a big personality in Vanni Sartini, and Sorensen's been wonderful. And I think in the East, Philadelphia missed out on the postseason last year, a coaching change. They now have the Golden Boot leader in Ty Baribo. They've got young talents like the Sullivan brothers, and they're just a fun team to watch. And I think they'll challenge in the East. But ultimately, guys, Inter Miami are so deep. They've got so much talent throughout, and they've got a fella by the name of Lionel Messi, supported by Suarez, Busquets, and Alba. And that's a really difficult challenge for anybody. And they're still, pissed off after last year. Miami knocked out of the playoffs by a 9th seed, the greatest upset in MLS history last year when Atlanta sent Messi and Miami packing. So they're on a bit of a redemption mission this year.
Kevin, we appreciate it, man. Great insight. It's been a fun start to Major League Soccer here in San Diego at the start for SDFC. We hope to do it again at some point later on this year, but thanks for joining us here in San Diego. Appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Absolute pleasure. Take care.
Our pleasure. Kevin Egan, host of MLS 360, MLS Wrap Up. He knows more than we do, although Jim was there this past weekend.
Can I just say this?
He's from Ireland.
I could listen to Kevin Egan talk all day.
Well, then you can
am I right?
Watch MLS 360 and MLS Wrap Up.
I will definitely be watching that. Now, I was thinking about asking him a question about WWE because he used to work at the WWE.
Right, in some fashion.
He was a ring announcer for Monday Night Raw.
Okay.
With Corey Graves for a while. But I wanted to ask him what his thoughts were on John Cena's heel turn, but I figured we'd just keep it to soccer talk.
You could have. Next time.
We'll have him on next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
When they announce SummerSlam or whatever.
When John Cena wins the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, that we can talk about.
When's that? That's
in like 20-something days.
They do WrestleMania in the spring.
No. Oh, wait. Yeah.
20 days would be the
that's
spring.
right. Yeah. I was thinking of SummerSlam. SummerSlam's in the summer, John.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. On the other side, back to what's on the line tonight for the Padres, trying to do something they've never done in franchise history. They're trying to do something they've never done in the history of the franchise.
Must-win game.
Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, will join us at 5:30. We're here until 6. Jon and Jim. All right, Wednesday at 6, San Diego Sports 760 has SDFC Midweek Live. You can hear from head coach Mikey Varis, as well as interviews with players and coaches. Find out the latest club and MLS information. Hosted by Darren Smith, SDFC Midweek Live every Wednesday at 6, and you're home for SDFC San Diego Sports 760. Kevin Acee will join us coming up at 5:30. His reaction to the Profar suspension, 80 games, if you missed it earlier. Also, his reaction to the Padres 4-0 start. What they're trying to do tonight that they've never done is start 5-0. They lost in extras in 84 to the Cubs when they were 4-0. Of course, they'd later go to the World Series.
I remember that game very vividly.
You weren't even alive. I said last night you were dead, and he said he wasn't dead.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, you weren't alive.
Like, oh, you were dead in 1984. No, I wasn't even conceived in 1984.
When were you born?
1989.
Like Taylor?
Like T Swift, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, they've never been 5-0. And if they win tonight, guess what?
They're 5-0.
Correct.
Wow.
So that's what's on the line for the first time ever. Now they'll have to top Jose Ramirez.
Returning to the lineup.
But he's played at least 2 games this year.
Yeah, but he missed yesterday.
Okay.
And he's back in the lineup today.
He had his right wrist wrapped as he sat in the clubhouse on Monday afternoon. This is from Jeff Sanders in the UT.
Well, he's back in there. When you look at it, the Padres schedule, opening up with Atlanta, then Cleveland, and then the Cubs, those are all good teams. You know, Atlanta and Cleveland both made the postseason last year. Cubs are going to be fighting for the Central. I think they might be the favorites, even though St. Louis is undefeated right now. They're 3-0 on the year. Very early.
Yeah, I don't think they're considered even like I don't think they're expected to make the postseason this year
for a team that spent like $0 in the offseason.
Right.
That's a good like measuring stick test for the Padres to start their season out against 3 really good teams.
Yeah, no, it is. I agree with that. Yeah, in terms of this Guardian series, I mean, shoot, I never expected them to be 4-0 right now. So I don't even know what the expectation is. Win the series because you're at home, get off to a 6-1 start. I mean, you're going to have your top 2 starters appear in this series, right? And King and Cease, who didn't pitch their best their first time around. I think that's pretty reasonable to say that the Padres would be a favorite to win a home series against Cleveland, which means you're looking at what would be like a historically good start to your season if you can win the series against Cleveland.
Well, yeah, and today you are absolutely trying to get greedy here. Get greedy early on. You're looking for at worst a series win versus the Guardians. You start your year, Thursday's an off day, travel day to Chicago, and you're 6-1. Dude.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Everybody would have signed up for that. Now, if you win tonight and then you win tomorrow, then you get extra greedy and you try to complete what I don't think is ever, a 7-0 homestand to start your year.
Well, if they've never been 5-0, I bet they've never been 7-0 to start.
But I said homestand to start the year. So they could have opened the season up on the road.
Let me answer it. No chance.
Yeah, no.
I'm not going to look it up. They've never had a 7-0 homestand to start the year.
No. Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that one.
Right. But you're right. I mean, it's not outside the realm that they could. I don't know. I don't know what's outside the realm with this team because they've played really well. They've won multiple ways, I think, come from behind wins this year. Really good pitching. Their bullpen's been great. Timely hitting. It has all the makings of everything that you would ask for to start the year.
Yeah.
And we'll see if it continues.
And we talked about their identity. Like Friday after their first win of the year, you're like, okay, this identity that they had in game 1 kind of feels like a carryover from 2024, but they're still going to have to try to create their own identity for the 2025 team. But it does feel like that identity of Grit Squad, right? Shilt's mentioned it 700 times already through the first 4 games,
right?
In post game, that's their identity, Grit Squad. That is who they are. We don't. I keep forgetting Merrill's quote.
Right. We don't feel pressure. We apply it. Essentially.
Yeah, that is what they want their identity to be. Grit Squad, and we don't feel pressure. We apply pressure.
The exact quote: "We apply pressure. We don't feel it." From Jerks and Profar after the first game.
From Jerks and Profar?
My mind's wandering.
I know.
Jackson Merrill.
There you go.
No, Profar's quote is my bad.
Profar's
sorry.
Profar's this was HGH or HGC or
whatever it was.
Oopsies.
CG.
Yeah.
Oopsies.
Profar, man. And we'll talk to Kevin Acee about Profar, but man, you got a long time to think on that when you get an 80-game suspension
at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, to start your year, and you're not eligible for the postseason. Now they got to get there.
That is true.
And they're dealing with injuries, and now they got this 80-game suspension, and they've started slow, whatever it means. It means nothing. It's 4 games, but they need to get there. If you missed the news earlier, Jurickson Profar, I mean, we were somewhat skeptical when we first heard it. It wasn't initially reported by any major outlets like ESPN, but about 30 minutes after the initial story broke, ESPN reported Jurickson Profar an 80-game suspension for an off-season positive PED test, and he will miss 80 games and the postseason in 2025.
And if you're Profar, you just gotta wear this, man. And he absolutely is. It's a brutal thing for him. I've already seen Dodger fans eating this up as, see, told you, he took steroids last year. Well, he was tested 8 times last year, and he tested negative all 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will also say, after his career year, and then right away in the offseason after this career year, he gets popped for PEDs. It's not a great look.
No.
And it definitely will make other fans of other fan bases automatically put last year's Profar year as a year that was because of PEDs. That's just how this thing works, whether you like it or not. And it just sucks because like last year's team was so much fun, and there were so many awesome things that happened, and Profar was in the middle of all those things. That just to have it be now kind of tainted, it feels like you're like, ugh,
yeah,
it sucks.
I don't think last year was tainted. I don't, but I do think that now when you talk about Profar, you have to mention this suspension. Again, it didn't happen with the Padres.
No, it didn't.
But all my feelings towards Profar over the last 4 or 5 years, this likable figure, this clubhouse culture builder, that's fair. That's part of it. But I now have to consider the fact that some of it is a little tainted. My opinions on Profar have changed. I'm not saying fully, but my opinion, that's all I can have, has changed a little bit on Profar. And to your point on him having the career year, and this has nothing to do with Tatis, but I can tie it back to Tatis this way. Tatis has always had to prove that what he did before the suspension, he's capable of doing after. And he's only done it to some extent. He hasn't had a 2021 season since PEDs. Now, maybe he does in 2025. And he's had good halves and moments and postseasons. But that 42 home run, 97 RBI, 25 steal year, he hasn't had since PEDs. So it would be a nice time for Tatis to prove that 2021 was no fluke.
Yeah. And you just are seeing this today, and the first thought, if you're a Padres fan, is, wow, I'm glad they didn't re-sign him now.
Right.
And I think, yesterday I was like, I still will like Profar on this team a lot, and I think they should have re-signed him. Now it's like, thank God they didn't, because this could have been a disaster early on in the season. And AJ Preller, I don't think they were ever going to pay Profar. And I don't think there was ever like I'm not going to sign Profar because he's testing positive for PEDs. Like, then why did the Braves sign him?
Right. Exactly.
So it's sometimes better to be lucky than good.
Yeah.
And in this case, AJ Preller and the Padres, for not giving Jurickson Profar that deal, it turns out to be that they're lucky here, because that could have been awful if he resigned here.
You're right. All right. Kevin Acee joins us on the other side from Petco. This is Jon and Jim.
All right, this update's brought to you by Caltrans, cleancalifornia.com. We'll start with the baseball news of the day. Jurickson Profar suspended 80 games for PED usage. He will not be eligible for the postseason if the Braves make the postseason. Moving over to the Padres, coming off a sweep of the Braves this past weekend. They take on the Cleveland Guardians starting tonight for a 3-game series at Petco Park. 6:40 first pitch. Kyle Hart makes his Padres debut. San Diego Football Club picked up 3 points as they beat LAFC Saturday night at Snapdragon Stadium. Their first home win in club history. Next up, they'll look to make it 2 in a row at home against Seattle Sounders. 7:30 kickoff. 7 p.m. is when our pregame coverage starts on Saturday night. And we have Lakers basketball that you can hear right on the station tonight as they take on the Houston Rockets at 7 p.m. Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California, then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. 0 litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
All right, let's get Kevin Acee in here. And by the way, Kevin Acee, our Padres Insider, brought to you by the all-new Jamul Casino and Resort, the Players Place. So, Kevin, great to have you with us. This is the last story I thought I'd ask you to react to, as the Padres have gotten off to this 4-0 start. But Jurickson Profar returns. He gets standing ovations. And today we learn, of all things, that he's received an 80-game suspension from Major League Baseball for violating their PED policy. So I'll just ask for your reaction. You've covered Profar for a good amount of time. Profar leaves. He gets popped just 4 games into the season. Thanks for hopping on. But what's your reaction to that?
Yeah. Well, my first reaction, look, I'm bummed. I get into this business for stories, and that was a great story, right? And now I don't want to say it's ruined, but it's tainted. I mean, it just is. Look, when a 31-year-old has a year like that, it pops into a lot of our minds who've been in this business for a while. But you go, all right, well, he's being tested. What, okay, like, this is great, right? What he got popped for, I've talked to, Mark Ziegler a lot. Mark Ziegler covers the Olympics for us, has for 30 years. He's pretty much one of the more informed media experts on this. And this HCG is like it's a component that you take to get your testosterone back up once you're done with the steroid cycle, or because your body stops producing, right? So, the suggestion is this has been going on for a while, and there are those people who believe that a lot of guys in professional sports, and in particular baseball, are doing something. So, I'm bummed about it because it just takes away a good story. And I would be bummed if it wasn't Jurickson Profar, but I'm particularly bummed because it's Jurickson Profar.
What, if there is any reaction in the clubhouse about this news?
Mostly not wanting to talk about it.
Yeah.
They're bummed as well. Look, you never know what guys know. And I'm not, I'm not saying they do, but I'm also trying to not be naive, right? So you don't know what they know before the rest of us know. Not that guys are out there, advertising when they're cheating, but, a lot of times it's known. Anyway, they were bummed. Everybody loves Jurickson, and at least everybody who plays with him does. And, glad he got through San Diego without that coming out.
Yeah, no doubt. We talked about this. I mean, Preller, maybe sometimes better to be lucky than good, I mean, because maybe they would have wanted him back coming off that year. They didn't have the money potentially, but imagine they signed him to a 2-year, $20 million deal. And here we are from a Padres perspective having to deal with this for the next 80 games plus the postseason.
Yeah, let me make it clear here. Like, if the Padres were owned by Steve Cohen, maybe they bring back Profar.
Right.
I don't think from the start that they felt, and this is something you got to give Preller credit for, right? Like, he loves Jurickson Profar. Might be number 2 behind Yu Darvish in terms of his favorite players. They didn't feel Profar was worth it from the beginning anyway. What they thought maybe get 14, 15, he turns out to get 14 a year. So I just want to make that clear. But yes, you are correct. If they had unlimited money, who doesn't want Jurickson Profar around?
Kevin, let's talk about something that is good, and that's the Padres. 4-0 start, second time in franchise history. Last time was 84. That was a good year for the Padres. They had the chance to do something that they've never done in franchise history. Let's go 5-0 tonight. Kyle Hart on the mound. Doesn't it just feel, Kevin, like the first 4 games of this year are a just continuation from the end of 2024 in the regular season with this club?
Yeah, it really does, because there was all sorts of different wins. And then, of course, the first two, I think we talked after the first one, and then the second one was, very similar, where they came back and, won a game that was, I believe, tied in the seventh. They run together for me at this point. But what they did is they just played resilient. They played smart baseball. They played aggressive baseball. They played clean baseball. And that marked their best times, which in there were obviously a lot of good periods in 2024. So that has marked them under Mike Shildt. What a good team does too is has games like Saturday, where Randy Vasquez is pitching and the back three and the bullpen are not available. The funny thing about baseball is a lot of times those games are predictable, right? Like you're like, okay, well, we chalked that one up, didn't have much of a chance anyway, right? And then a lot of times you think, and look, well, I did. Well, it's going to be a rough one. At least I'm not saying they're not going to win, but it's going to be rough to get through. I don't know how they're going to do it. I was counting innings. Okay, so if Randy goes 3 2/3, like the first two guys have had short outings, how are they getting through this? And Randy goes 6 shutout. And then, the 3 guys that come in get it done, and they are not 3 guys that you would normally think and are in those situations. And so that was fantastic. And then Nick Pivetta, man, that was a real nice start.
No doubt about it. 7 innings, 1 hit, facing the minimum in that shutout yesterday for the Padres. Kevin Acee with us right now, our Padres insider. So Kyle Hart, comes over from Korea, where he won the top pitching award, the Korean equivalent of the Cy Young, had this masterful year with the high strikeout numbers, the low ERA. What have the Padres seen in him, and what are the expectations for Kyle Hart heading into the year?
But Kyle Hart can be very effective when he is pitching on the edges. And he's kind of like a number 5 starter, right? Like he's first off, he's a lefty, helps him out a little bit. But guy could give up 5 runs in 4 innings, 4 runs in 5 innings. And a number 5 starter, sometimes that's what you're looking for is, keep us in the game, right? 4 runs, 3-4 runs in 5 innings. I'm not saying that's what you're aiming for, but you're like, okay, well, this is the night that we need to score some runs. The guy was super impressive. I do not believe that they were overly expecting, like they weren't, I'm not going to say they weren't expecting, they don't put limits on guys, but they're a little bit surprised, especially considering he got sick for a full week, that he was improved like he did, and that he showed and he rose to the occasion and he earned this job. I don't know that he would have earned it over Randy. Randy was looking good at the end. If Yu Darvish, I don't know if Kyle Hart would have been the one to earn it, but the guy looked really good. And, there's some real pitches in there, but, and I don't mean to be callous, but number 5 starter, man, they're a dime a dozen, but they are super, super valuable. Like you get a number 5 starter, it gives you somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5. And you have other good pitchers, right? Your whole staff can't be these guys, but you look back and you go, Kyle Hart gave us 25 starts. I mean, that's huge. So that's what they're hoping out of this guy.
When should we expect an update on Yu Darvish, Kevin?
Well, I believe through today, I'm not sure. I'm sorry about that. But over the weekend, wrote about how he had gotten out to 105 feet, and generally how these things go, you start to throw a little harder and a little longer. And so 105 to get out to 150 in long toss is 2 or 3 times. Then feeling good. Maybe you do that twice, or maybe you go right to the pen. And I'll tell you this, Yu Darvish is already studying opponents 2 weeks ahead. I think 2 weeks a little ambitious, but that's a sign that it's he is realistically expecting it to be sooner than later. It's not like they're just wasting their time here and don't want to tell us. Sometimes that happens. It's not like they're hoping against hope. Evidently, they really do believe that Yu Darvish can be back. Let's say by May.
Kevin, you wrote about this, and obviously there's no concern with Arise, right? Hitless. I think he started 0 for 13 last year, won a batting title. He's 0 for 13 right now. They move him from the leadoff spot to the number 2 hole. I'm sure nobody's worried.
No, I mean, it'd be nice to get a hit.
Sure.
But look, like some of these balls, when they left the bat, you go, okay, well, that's a Luis Arise, that's him striking the ball, right? Like they've been going right at people, and yeah, he's 0 for 13. He had some real struggles at times last year. I don't know about 0 for 13, but some periods I remember us talking about it a lot, right? Like some periods where he's hitting like 112 or something. So no concern that the proverbial. There's got to be one guy you talk about how you go, well, if this was the middle of the season, we wouldn't even notice. But it's the beginning of the season, and so he's 0 for 13, and we're like, whoa, when's the first hit coming? Here's the guy I'd be concerned about. You know who I'm going to say right now who doesn't have a hit?
Jason Hayward.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And again, it's like whenever you're 4-0, right? It's like none of it really matters. Like we talked about maybe Michael King on opening day, but they won, or Dylan Cease, but it's like if you're 0-4, then everything matters, right? Luis Ariz being 0.
Yeah, we'd be all.
Oh my gosh, this show we'd be commercial
all
free.
Over Jason Hayward, right? Jason Hayward's the reason they're 0 for 4. You see all those innings he ended and all. You're like, absolutely. Now my job, your guys' job, my job as a guy who follows the team every day is to try to not get too caught up in that and go, okay, 158 games to go. Where does Jason Hayward fit? Where does Iglesias fit? Where does Gurriel fit? We talked last week about Cronenworth against lefties. Turns out he evidently hurt us.
Right.
That's always the
Great
joke,
point.
right?
Yep.
So we got to keep an eye on these things.
No, we absolutely do, Kevin. We always appreciate it. We'll see if the Padres can keep this going. A 4-0 start to the regular season, first time since '84, seeking their first ever 5-0 start here tonight. Kevin, we appreciate it. Let's do it again later this week, all right?
Right on. Take care.
All right, Kevin Acee, our Padres Insider, brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino and Resort, the Players' Place. So, yeah, a lot to react to with Profar and the Padres. And we'd be talking about John Sadler selling the team if they were 0-4. But they're 4-0, so everything's perfect. Everything's perfect right now.
Speaking of John Sadler, that is the one thing that we did not get to today. Let's just extend our show to 7.
Okay. I'm down.
That is the one thing we didn't talk about. It was either Friday night or Saturday. No, it was Friday. It was Friday night. John Sadler made his way to the booth, and it was interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't like the perfect, 13-minute interview or whatever it was. I mean, the interview was fine. It's just, did he answer everything the way you would have liked for him to answer it? Maybe not, but I mean, I don't know. It's a hard position to put someone in that's not used to being in that seat.
Yeah, the first thing that I came away with that was there is a reason and was a reason why he was not put in front of the media.
Yeah, I agree.
You could clearly tell. I saw something on Twitter that was hilarious. I forget who tweeted it. They said, "Man, John Sadler really wants to make you walk through a wall."
Walk through a wall.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and again, he was asked specifically, like, hey, your thoughts of this 2025 team?
Yeah.
No mention of a player.
None.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just got to have those bullet points there and be like, hey, Manny's our captain and we love Michael King. And you know what I mean? Like you just got to have some bullet points there, but that's all right. To each their own. They're 4-0.
In defense, probably very nervous. Probably not. I mean,
dude, I get it. Yeah, no, I understand. And this is what we do for a living. If we're put in a different environment, Jim, if all of a sudden I'm representing Padres ownership on TV tonight, it's a little bit of a different situation than what you and I do every day.
Yeah, he's probably not used to being on television broadcast or in front of a group of media members. Like, I don't think he's ever done that before. So this is a very controlled thing, and you can tell why.
All right, we'll get to Jim's back page on the other side. There's also a report out right now that San Diego State basketball has landed a commit via the portal.
Oh,
we'll share that with you next, Jon and Jim. You know what I like to say? Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
I was going to say, yeah, heavy is head that wears the crown. What else do you have to say?
Well, I've never said it once, but it's always portal season in college athletics. I've never said that, but it's kind of true. San Diego State, according to Arman Jovic, I'm not at PDT Scouting, so take it for what it's worth, has landed a commitment from a transfer who 2 years ago was at DePaul and spent 3 years at Wyoming. Jeremiah Oden, 6'9" forward, 2 years ago averaged just about 10 points per game at Wyoming. He's a big that can shoot the three. I'm just doing a quick dive, not a deep dive. I remember Jeremiah Oden. He spent 3 years at Wyoming. He averaged about 10 points per game 2 years ago for the Cowboys. He's coming back to the Mountain West, according to this report, and that's the first addition in the portal for Brian Dutcher and the staff. Jeremiah Oden, 6'9". I don't have video in front of us as of yet. 6'9". I want to say he sat out last year. He was with a team, the Charlotte 49ers, 2 years ago with DePaul, 3 years ago at Wyoming. Averaged 10 points per game for Wyoming 2 years ago. I'll say this. San Diego State was really young a year ago. This is going to be either a fifth-year player or a sixth-year player. I think it might be a sixth-year player. We'll do the dive on it. That Brian Dutcher and his staff have added 6'9" forward that can shoot the three ball, averaged 10 points per game 3 years ago at Wyoming. We'll do a deeper dive. I don't know much about him.
Yeah, I was going to look to you on this because you do the deep dives.
I'm the deep dive guy.
You're the deep diver with this type of thing.
Oh, 100%.
But I like the fact that he's in the college basketball world considered a vet, right?
Right.
He's not a young kid. He's played how many years, you said?
Well, his first year was 2020, 21.
So he's on his sixth year?
So 2020, 21, 22, 23. Sat out a year.
Oh,
potentially, because I don't know the reason, Jim, and this would be a six. I'm a fan of getting older. I'm a fan of the sixth-year player.
Me too.
So if you add a sixth-year player, and again, we'll learn more about him in the minutes ahead for me, because I'll just start
deep diving
the second the show ends. But Jeremiah Oden reportedly is joining San Diego State via the portal. All right, let's get to it.
So Torpedo bats have taken the baseball world by storm, and Victus Sports, John.
Yeah, Victus, of course. The bat company?
Yeah, the bat company. They have definitely capitalized on the talk of torpedo bats because now you can get your own torpedo bat at victussports.com. They are making their torpedo bats available for purchase nationwide. They start at $209. There's other ones that are $199.99. So $200 for a torpedo bat, John.
Someone said something really interesting to me earlier, which was it's much more about who is swinging the bat than the bat itself.
Right.
So always remember that. Okay, have the bats changed? Guess what? They've changed since Babe Ruth. They've changed from what'd they go from oak to maple? You know what I mean? There's been constant change with bats. The ball has changed. We've talked about it over the history of Jon and Jim. The ball's changed recently, but the bat has changed. But guess what? You still need to be able to swing the bat, right? That's the bigger part of the equation than anything else is the batter, not the bat.
Yeah, you can give me a torpedo bat and I'll still go 0 for 100.
Exactly. Exactly.
I won't even touch. I won't even tip a ball. It will be that bad. So you're absolutely right. It's about the person who's swinging the bat, not the bat itself.
Right. I mean, the bat may matter. Make no mistake. I'm sure the bat matters, but the players matter more than the bat.
Correct. Moving along here, John. Pizza Hut brings back one of their fan favorite cheesy bite pizza. All right.
Okay.
Now this started over the weekend. The popular Cheesy Bites pizza is back for a limited time. Alongside the debut of the Ranch Lovers Flight, a trio of bold ranch-inspired dipping sauces designed to elevate game day snacking experiences. This is in collaboration with March Madness and the Final Four coming up. The Cheesy Bites pizza features a large one-topping pizza surrounded by a crust made of 28 pull-apart mozzarella stuffed cheesy bites.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect for dipping and sharing, complementing the complementing the pizza is the new Ranch Lovers Flight, which includes 3 ranches, base sauces, Chipotle Ranch, Ultimate Ranch, and Pepperoni Ranch. Both offerings are available nationwide for delivery, takeout, or dine-in at participating Pizza Hut locations. I would absolutely body one of these Cheesy Bites pizzas.
Well, does that mean like eat?
Like, yeah, eat.
Okay.
They look delicious.
Let me see.
Look at that.
That looks good. Looks really good.
It's like a 2-in-1. You get Cheesy Bites and a pizza.
All in one. Yeah. That's smart. Yeah.
And you can just take apart the Cheesy Bites, have a cheesy bite, and then you can also have the pizza.
There's no losers.
The only thing with those is they don't stay together very well.
I wouldn't expect them to, no.
but it's like, it's a stuffed crust. You can pick it up and eat it. It's not going to fall apart. The Cheesy Bites part of it is very loosely in there. So you're pretty much going to be like picking up a crustless piece of pizza and trying to eat it when you're done.
This is interesting.
Finally, Taco Bell has finally released their new toasted cheddar street chalupas nationwide.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. They were first tested in Houston and officially revealed at their Live Moss live event in New York. The toasted cheddar street chalupas are now available nationwide. You can grab a duo for $5.49 a la carte, but they're only available for a limited time while supplies last. So go get them right now.
Like they're available right now, so we can truly go get them right now?
You can truly go get them right now, yes.
So maybe on the way home, you could pick some up for you and Aaron.
Probably not.
What did Aaron do when you left for like 12 hours on Saturday?
She wasn't feeling good, so she just rested and watched television.
Hey, Jim, I feel awful. All right, I'll see you in 12 hours.
She's watching this series that she's too far into, Natalia Grace. Have you heard that name?
No. Netflix?
Look it up on Hulu. It is a wild story from what I've seen.
But you haven't been watching. You've just been like, oh my gosh, you couldn't go 4 hours without sneezing?
Nope, I had to get one in there right at the end.
Maybe she got you sick.
I'm not sick, dude.
You've never been sick when you
This is not a sickness that she's not feeling well because of.
Do you want to do this again tomorrow?
We have to.
It's not a choice. Okay. All right, back tomorrow too. Join us tonight. Wrap-up show following Padres Guardians, Jackson Merrill bobblehead night. If you missed anything today, sportsSD.com, iHeartRadio app, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, or Spotify. We're back tomorrow at 2, tonight on YouTube with a wrap-up show. For Brent and Jim, I'm John. Keep it here at San Diego Sports 760.
Okay.
Bye.